Welcome to the BJJ Executive Podcast, episode 12. I'm your host, Dave Kroll. And starting this week off, just like we always do, tremendous sense of gratitude. Big couple weeks on the mats. And as always, if this podcast is something that's influenced you, if this is something that has added any value to your game at all, kept you on the mats for a moment longer, would love to hear about it. Come talk to me. You're already a part of my journey, and I'd love to be a part of yours. So welcome to the journey. A couple housekeeping items this week. I guess, first of all, I've been reminded over and over again that I need to make sure people understand how to support the podcast. So if you're a fan of the podcast, go to Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening to this, and just give it a quick like. Give it a thumbs up, give it a star review, whatever it is that you need to do in order to complete whatever that process is. It will mean a lot to me. I can tell you that it doesn't personally add anything to me or anything like that, but it is a good sense of fulfillment when I see that people have gone on there and they've enjoyed it. And then also on Instagram, follow me on Instagram at BJJ Executive, and then feel free to share that with your friends so that everybody could be a part of the movement. The whole point of this podcast is to bring people on that have been through the journey, bring people on that have spent years on the mats, have gone through all of the injuries, all of the heartbreak, all of the family conflicts, all of the work conflicts, but have somehow find time to keep active, and hopefully add that to your repertoire as well. So learn from the mistakes that they've made, learn from the tips that they've got, and add this to your tool belt, and hopefully stay on the mats for as long as possible. We've got some new initiatives coming up. We've got a shorter version of this podcast that's going to be coming out called BJJ Executive Open Mat. Basically, it's going to be, nothing's going to change on these. I love getting people on here, hearing their stories, digging deep into their background. But it has kind of come to my attention that there's two types of podcast fans, people that like it long and people that like it a little bit shorter in duration. And so this is something that will give me an opportunity to kind of have more of a rotating host. We'll be able to bring people on more than once, and people that like doing these things and have an open schedule could come on and give me a hand. We'll go through lighter, I guess, more condensed topics, and then we'll be able to put more content out. And so look for that in the next month or two. And we've got some other stuff that's coming up as well, but I'll save that for another day. So getting into this week, I've been looking forward to this podcast because we've been working on this for a while, and I've got a few folks that if I didn't make this happen, I think that I'd definitely be put in the penalty box, the BJJ Executive penalty box. But I met Paul Gilman, probably 2 years ago at this point, training on the mats in Highland Village. And I'm a local DFW guy. I live here in the DFW Metroplex. It turns out that Paul also has a school in the DFW Metroplex, which I didn't know a whole lot about. And a lot of that's because of my own little closed world that I live in. I'm not a big social media guy. I don't go out there, looking or liking or any of that other stuff. But eventually you run into somebody that makes enough waves around you that as they start coming back and hitting you in the face, you realize, man, I'm going to need to figure out what's going on here. And so it came to me from all different directions. Obviously, I had heard about our school that was out in Argyle. I had heard from students that had come in that had trained in Argyle, that had come to the Highland Village location. So I was definitely well aware of it. And then I think probably the pinnacle event where I said, you know what, I'm going to have to go and just see this for myself was when I met one of Paul's students up at the Origin Immersion Camp in Maine. And big shout out to Spencer Hamilton. He's probably the biggest broker for me for this podcast. He's told me over and over again, you've got to get Paul on. You've got to hear his story. But Spencer was walking around and he had an Argyle Jiu Jitsu shirt on. And so it sort of sparked a conversation where I said, hey, is that the same Argyle as in the DFW area? He goes, yeah, man, it is. And I said, okay, where do you live? And he said, well, I live in that area, which is a couple miles away from where I live. And the rest is history. I've since had a chance to come and visit Paul's gym, Argyle Jiu Jitsu, and Argyle, Texas, several times. I consider it kind of a home away from home. I go there quite a bit, and it's a super welcoming crowd. Paul's got an amazing story, and I'm looking forward to get into it. So with that, welcome, Paul, to the podcast.
Hey, good to be here.
Thank you for carving the time out. I think that like this one was probably our top rescheduled. And so last week was spring break. I completely botched it. And when I say botched it, I mean, I forgot that it existed. And so we had us on the schedule for, I think it was Friday, and I'm sitting there on like Wednesday night, and I'm like, oh my God, kids off school next week, we're going somewhere. Except that I've got 2 guys scheduled. So I had you, and I had Weston's episode would have come out right before this one, and you were in the afternoon, he was in the morning, and I'm like, oh my God, well, what do I do?
Yeah, I have a lot on my plate too. So
man.
It's like, I'm going to get it eventually, but I'm getting pressured by Zach actually, because he's going to be coming on here soon.
Dude, Zach is like one of the most organized humans that I know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I mean, and so he's like, what time should I be there? 9:18? I'll be there at 9:17.
Right. Yeah. That comes from his background, I guess.
Of course, man. Now, clearly, he's got sort of that meticulous Army sense to him. You don't mess with Army guys, man, and their sense of organization. Marines are fanatics, so I'm used to being around fanatics. There's no like, if we're going to eat crayons, we're going to do it the best as possible. Whereas Zach is more about the systemization of things. He was also an Army officer. I was a, hole digger, kind of, jarhead. But anyway, he's putting pressure on it as well, which is good for him. He said that, hey, look, man, Paul's my professor. I want to make sure he gets on there, gets his story out there. And so, but anyway, man, you guys had a big in-house tournament. I saw some of the videos. It looked like pure bodies
good.
All over the place.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, we had 4 different sections where people were divided, and we had cones, and so it wasn't complete. We've been doing tournaments at the gym actually once a week for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Really?
Yeah. So prepping for this tournament. Working out the kinks. So it was good and then the guys really like responded to the tournaments that we'd have. Like, all right, guys, we have like 20 guys here tonight. 4 of you guys are above 220. 4 of you guys are below 220. Let's section off, and then you guys all fight each other, and we score it.
That's cool. Who goes out and scores? We
have it's me, a guy named Mark Taranjo. He's pretty good with the rules. Who else is there as a purple belt will know some of the rules, but the basic scoring, we don't go into advantages or penalties.
Good. But you would have lost me.
Oh yeah,
I still haven't figured that out.
I've been watching the IBJJ rules on YouTube. Yeah, part of getting your black belt, you have to go through the referees.
I saw that.
I still have not completed mine, but wrestling is much easier. A takedown is just, hey, the knee touches, it's a takedown.
Yeah. Jiu-Jitsu. Although there seems to be plenty of controversy in wrestling as well.
Sometimes. They have the penalty block now. Yeah.
You're a wrestling parent. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of drama out there.
You know what's legal and what's not legal. Yeah. They have the scissor, that backwards scissor kick in jiu-jitsu that's dangerous for the takedown.
Yeah, it's banned in judo.
It's banned in wrestling too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, there's plenty of like blown knees to probably justify it. I'm sure that's what it is.
Yeah, it's the single leg counter where you grab your leg and then you roll them backwards. Mm-hmm. If you fold their legs, they'll call that I forget what they call it, but yeah.
That's the rule set fighting, like I heard that in judo now you can't do like, I think it's a single, like the equivalent of a single leg, whatever that is in Japanese, just because it was too effective. And so it started ruining the sport. And so they're just like, well, we'll just ban it.
I did judo for a year when I lived in Korea. And the master was like, he always tried to throw me, and I was a wrestler. So, he knew I was a wrestler, but they liked me going in there. But I would just single leg them, lift them up and throw them backwards. And he had a lot of young guys that were just beginners too. And I have a little bit of Greco background, so it was pretty easy for me to adjust. So I'd get to go with the master all the time, and he'd just try to throw me every which way, and I'd land on my feet, and so judo is
one of those buoyant guys that just kind of like sort of pops right back to the top, like
light. You know how lightweights are, right?
Yeah, man, I do, and like in wrestlers too, where it just seems like, man, how'd you move your torso that quickly?
Yeah, so
it doesn't work for me. That's cool, man. So was it kids and adults that did the tournament?
It ended up being, there was a couple of teenagers who asked if they could do it too. And I was like, well, let's see who shows up. And then, I put it out there, and like 15 kids showed up.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you guys get your own section. I'll block you guys off. We had the paperwork there where we can just fill in the names.
That's awesome.
And, the kids, man, they went, there was 2 divisions. They all got between 6 and 7 matches each.
Wow, that's awesome. Good experience.
So, yeah, it's a good experience. It's you go to a tournament, you might get 1 or 2 and get eliminated.
Yeah.
So the goal was to see how many matches that everyone can get. And again, 4 or 5 man bracket. That's if it's a 5-man bracket, everybody gets 4 matches, and it's 4 5-minute matches. And then I think we had one bracket was 7, so everybody got 6 matches.
You put the scorecard on anything, man. The stakes up, and,
Yeah.
and people
Yeah.
are suddenly interested in a new way.
And you get surprised. I was like, wait, this guy? Wait, okay.
Yeah, turned it on?
Yeah. I mean, we had a couple of guys that did really well. It's like, okay, I didn't know he had that. So,
That's cool.
yeah. So
Good stuff, man. I was at, like, as we were talking about before here, I mean, I was over at Zach's place at Roanoke Jiu Jitsu, and we were doing some work together, and he had a couple of his teenagers that were on the mats just kind of goofing around, and I was talking to him ahead of time. And both of them participated in the tournament. And both had a blast.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were telling me about it. I mean, like in-house, not in-house. I mean, for them, clearly this was like, this counted. And,
right.
They wanted, one of them didn't do as good as he wanted to. And he was telling me about it. He was like, I mean, I didn't bring my game. I was like, okay.
I'll tell you a little bit about that kid. He's good.
That's cool. I could tell. I watched him.
Yeah.
I watched him in class. I mean, good skill wise, and then also just like his mindset seemed to be pretty locked on, you know. And so that was cool. How often do you plan to do these?
I think we'll do them biannually now because
Really?
it turned out it was so good that at the end of fall, I think we can do it again.
I mean, from the pictures, man, there must have been 100 people in there.
Yeah, probably 100. Yeah.
First of all, where did they park?
So yeah, we have limited parking, and then there's an auto care place next door. You can park around there.
That's cool. That's a good sign of a thriving business, man. When that's the concern, because ordinarily it's not an issue.
Yeah. And if there's no other parking, you can just park down the street there. So
yeah, it's one of the charms of Argyle.
Yeah,
is that it's purposely sort of built that way.
Yeah.
Well, so I know I've got kind of a primer on your background, right? Like up until today, I didn't know that you were from California. I know there's a lot of stuff that took you over to sort of the Far East, but I mean, you tell me where you want to start. I mean, let's start in California. Is that kind of what would be considered home for you? Or,
Yeah. Well, I told you I was a military brat, so
Army.
Army. So spent time in El Paso, Germany. My brother and sister were born down here down in Waco. There's a base down there somewhere. I forget what it's called. Fort Worth? Oh no, Fort Hood.
Fort Hood. Okay. Yeah.
Lampasas or something.
I have no idea.
I was there as a baby. I remember a little bit about that place, but and then we were stationed in Alaska, Fairbanks, Alaska. In the middle of nowhere. It's cold, but had nothing to do but wrestle. So. I was a little guy, so 75 pounds in 7th grade. And
really?
Couldn't do any sports except for the coach said, you should try wrestling. And lo and behold, I was kind of good at it. So
I don't hear many coaches that say that, like, well, you're 75 pounds, so wrestling is probably the way you ought to go.
Well, we had wrestling and PE, and I ended up in my little weight class. I won the little tournament at the PE. And like 5 of us. And I don't know. All my friends were big. Yeah. And we wrestled all the time. You wrestle in the basements because, Alaska, it's cold. So in the wintertime, you're in the basement playing basketball or wrestling. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I took to it because it was like, well, I couldn't really play football and basketball that well.
Yeah. I guess that's why wrestling takes so well in like winter areas, it's because it is like one of the few things other than like indoor soccer or something like that, or volleyball, that you can do when you're indoors. Yeah, that's cool. I wouldn't have ever associated Alaska with it, but
and it's a good they have a good program there for the middle schoolers.
Really?
I mean, we have state finals. There's like 60 schools
for middle school.
Yeah,
dang, that's cool. Good. That's legit.
Yeah, so.
That's what's missing in Texas is that they don't have they can't keep a middle school program constant.
Yeah.
And because of that, at least in our school district, like the one that my son's in, and I mean, so kids are coming in 9th grade. You can become a really good wrestler, obviously, in a short amount of time. But I mean, you're not going to compete against somebody who's been doing it since they were in like 5th grade or something.
Yeah, but I mean, it's such a tough sport that if you start too early, you're going to burn out.
Really?
So if you start as a 5th grader, 4th grader, by the time you hit high school, you're just going to say, I want to do baseball, or
I'm done with this. I'm done
with wrestling. Yeah, because it's a grind. You know? So I think I picked it up at the right time. I was pretty undisciplined. I was hanging out. We're army rats. We're
Yeah, man.
getting into trouble by the MPs all the time. staying out past curfew.
I remember when I was first exposed to that, man. I was a 17 or 18-year-old private or PFC or something like that. And I was going through my schools,
Yeah.
and I remember my gunny had a son, and his son was in trouble.
Oh,
He pops in, so he was like grounded with the dad, so we had to bring him into the class. This was like in a classroom instruction.
Oh man!
And I was like, dude, that kid's like 2 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
And he just clearly got in some big trouble, dude. I don't know what it was, but anyway, that was my first exposure to that, which I'm sure you've got all the inside scoop on.
Oh man, we were terrible. Because when in Alaska, there's in the summer, the sun doesn't go down. I forget what that's called, right?
I don't know either, but I've heard that.
So
there's a reciprocal to that too, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
there's like
in the
a
winter
long
it's
period
dark. It's long, yeah, but it's never really dark because it's it's snow everywhere, so it's always outside. It's bright.
Okay.
So you can get out. If you want to get into 60-degree weather, then, but yeah. So in the summertime, the big thing was to sneak out and get on your bikes and try to, meet at places. So MPs would be swarming, trying to pick up kids because curfew was like 10 p.m. I think.
Yeah.
And we'd be out till like 2 a.m.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then you have to find you can go off base, but you have to find the gate where you can sneak behind and get through there.
Oh, that's a lovely display of of like Homeland Security.
Oh man, there was like holes in the gate everywhere. You could just ride your bike through.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so
that's great. I mean, obviously this is like pre 9/11, so I wonder if any of that stuff has changed.
Yeah,
probably not.
Yeah. So yeah, I picked up wrestling in 7th grade, and I went undefeated. Oh, the first year I got second, and then the next year I won it. I won state undefeated.
Wow.
And I was like, looking back at it, yeah, it was tough. You get like 20 or 30 matches a season, but
that's a lot, man.
Yeah.
And for a middle schooler, I mean, no background or whatnot, that's a lot.
Yeah. So, and then I moved to California. And then we went to California where my dad retired, and we went to a small place.
Was that high school for you?
Yeah, high
California?
school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 12,000 people lived in that community. It's kind of like Argyle, I guess.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool. Is that Northern California?
Northern California, Red Bluff.
Wow.
Shout
cool.
out to Red Bluff,
That's
California.
awesome, man. I'm sure all 12,000 of them are listening.
Yeah, it's it's a small school, so I was one of the best wrestlers there, and again I had a pretty good career wrestling. The only problem is that by the time I got to state, I was a nobody, and it's
a big state, man.
It's a big state, and I usually did pretty well at state. Freestyle and Greco as well too, so I could hold my own.
Did you do freestyle and Greco like in club and stuff like that? So that kind of an off-season thing for you?
Off season I still wanted to wrestle, so we'd travel around. The good thing with that, you can just travel around the state.
Oh, okay.
So we can we had our own little section, but we drove down to the Bay Area. We would drive to LA, and it'd just be a road trip.
That's cool.
I mean, 8 of us in the back of a pickup truck.
How northern were you guys? I mean, what's it take to get you down to the Bay Area?
2 hours.
2 hours. Okay, cool.
2 hours.
That's beautiful
north
country.
Of our Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And then 2 hours from Oregon. So we're like right there.
There's an interesting little epicenter that you're in, man. I mean, that's a different part of America.
It is. Yeah.
My wife is about to go out there. She's going to go to Mount Shasta and
so
spend some time.
Red Bluff is like 30 minutes
is that
from
right?
that area.
Oh man,
Shasta.
you'll have to fill her in with some of the local intel.
Yeah.
Before we go out. We did a very small stint in Reno. And we go to like Truckee and through that area and whatnot. It's beautiful, man. It's
We used to have a house out in Auburn.
No kidding.
Yeah, so not far from Truckee.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
it's gorgeous.
Beautiful up there. Yeah. Pine country is what they call
it. Heck yeah, man. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Right in the Sierra. I mean, like it's beautiful.
Yeah. So
cool. So you ended up in college there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went. Ended up going first. I went to a junior college down in the Bay Area. That was fun. That's where I really honed my wrestling because we had just killers. I mean, we had a couple state champions in there. Kung Lee was one of my classmates. He was in the UFC. He's
I remember him.
Yeah, he was really tough. 185 pound. He was like.
So you and Kung Lee went to junior college together?
Oh yeah. We hung out all the time.
That's awesome.
We'd go every weekend to eat pho. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we'd hang out. And then I remember when he started doing MMA because he was a year ahead of me, and he would say, "Man, you should come and try this." He was a travel agent at the time.
Dude, that's crazy.
And he would show me all these kicks at the office.
Really?
And I was like, "Nah, I don't want to be kicking anybody. I can't even get my leg up." But he was so into it. And then then I moved on. Of course, I ended up moving out to Sacramento. We transferred to Davis, UC Davis, and another place where there's a lot of tough wrestling. But we were in a transitional state where we had an interim coach that year, and I was a red shirt. I remember I was a red shirt back then, so I got a year of wrestling under the interim coach, and then we had a coach from, I believe, Iowa come out my senior year. I was struggling academically, so I didn't get to do a lot of wrestling, but he was really good. Man.
Yeah.
I learned a lot in that year. Yeah, he's the one who coached Uriah Faber the next 3 or 4 years, where Uriah was like All-American the next 3 years. So.
Yeah, it's cool seeing this big run of wrestlers that are coming through the UFC now as well. Like Bo Nichols is in, and I mean, like I remember, not even remember. I mean, even recently we've been watching him in the Division I finals.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of guys last week who were talking about they're going to go to the UFC, or they're going to start MMA, which is sad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because after you win D1, you want to go to try the Olympics.
Yeah, that seems to be the path to take. I mean, the Olympics aren't going to pay you though.
No.
So you can either go to WWE or WWF or whatever's out there now, or do the MMA route.
Yeah, there's a few guys coming out there going to do MMA. They're going to be really tough. So
can't beat the base.
No, man. But you still have to be good at striking. So
yeah,
that's where they really need to work on.
Well, I've always known you had a wrestling background, and so like starting that off in middle school in Alaska, I guess. I mean, I had no idea you were in Alaska, and then moving that into California. Was it a tough step up going from Alaskan middle school wrestling into what is a really good wrestling state in high school, I suppose?
Yeah, I guess. But where I was from, it was, we had all these tournaments. I would win like all the tournaments in the beginning because it was just, they're all small schools.
Yeah.
Until we hit, and I don't know if you know Gilroy. So Gilroy would have a tournament every year, 64 man. It's like, mid-cal is what we called it. It's the middle of the year.
Okay.
And 64 of the top guys in the state would go. And
big bracket.
I would make it to the semis every year and lose. And I was just like, and then it was, just a different world. So, it was tough. I don't know. I lost my train of thought there, but yeah.
Well, no, it's an easy transition from Alaska into California.
Yeah.
And if you did have those, I mean, I know like that, again, I'm not trying to bash Texas wrestling or whatnot, but just in terms of like the infrastructure that it's got around it, I mean, to go get a 64-man bracket here, I mean, that's an important part of experience. I mean, like if you get knocked to medal in a 64-man bracket, if you're not going to be the champ, you're probably going to have 10 matches.
You'd have 5 matches
on the consolation side of the bracket, man.
Yeah,
I mean, like to get
five or 6
7th
matches
or something.
Yeah,
dude, that's a long day, man. So you're going to be a multi-day tournament. Yeah. I mean, so like to get your mindset into it and whatnot. Yeah. If your first time experiencing that is when it really counts.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, so having that background and stuff must have kind of made it a little bit smoother to get into California.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I liked it. I mean, I was pretty passionate about wrestling back then. So anytime I got to go to a big tournament, it
sounds like you've lost some of that passion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the first time I went to that mid-cal tournament in Gilroy, the finals, it's just one mat. It's a stage raised with the lights, and they have the announcer.
Dang,
and they would
that's legit.
Come out and stage.
As a high schooler?
Yeah, and
awesome.
I was in awe. I was like, man, I want to be on that stage.
They put some steam out.
Yeah,
they
literally.
Get walkout music.
Yeah, you would. There would be, it was like.
I might be a little addicted to that
it's
too.
It's kind of like ADCC, right?
This
this last ADCC, I remember, and then everybody's like, man, I want to be on that stage with the spotlight, and then
that's why people like to fight to wins and stuff, is because they, they get to walk out with their, Rage Against the Machine or,
you'd get in the finals
going.
And then during the finals, there's an announcer talking about their GPA, what they do in their hobbies.
Dude,
they get a whole, and I was like, man, this guy.
That's awesome.
And there was a lot of impressive guys. Like we would sit and watch, and there's so many impressive wrestlers, and you'd hear about what they like to do. They call this one guy Superman. He was undefeated like 4 years in a row.
Really?
He wore glasses and just looked like this little nerdy guy. Ended up being the coach at Arizona State for a while. But came out as a nerd, and he would take off his uniform, just shredded.
Really?
Just jacked, and then he just ripped people apart. Like, oh my God.
That's amazing.
I forget the guy's name, but
yeah, well, you'll see that at every wrestling tournament, man. I mean, like if you're a insecure 30 or 40-year-old dad and you got all these like testosterone fueled 17 and 18-year-old shredded kids that look like Hercules running around, I'm like, dang, man, I'm gonna gonna keep my shirt on today. I don't quite feel up to a contest.
But what you think is shredded and big in high school is a little different perspective.
Totally.
Too. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. What did you study?
Communications.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that seems like a...
Yeah, it was just,
one to pick.
Yeah, just pick one because...
that's what it is, man. It is just pick one.
I got recruited to wrestle at East Davis. That's the only reason I got in there. My GPA was terrible. It's like 2.5, whatever. And
I don't even think my high school GPA had a 2 handle in it.
Oh, yeah.
So you're in good company, man.
It was terrible. It was a different world, too, because of the UC, so I was drowning in academics. I couldn't grasp a lot of the concepts they were speaking.
Was it D1?
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
So what was it like being a D1 athlete, having to manage, now an academic curriculum as well?
It was tough. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of tough classes. I was also driving. I was commuting to school. And then we had the practices, we had morning practices or afternoon practices. It was just part of my life. I didn't really think there was nothing different for me.
Yeah.
I was always wrestling. So
I guess you knew what you were getting yourself into as well.
Yeah. I didn't really, so yeah, it was pretty easy to just train and get my work done and then working like 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
would they carding you guys off? Like, I mean, I know just, having a son that recently graduated college and another one that we're going and looking at colleges,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like there's like an athlete area.
Mm-hmm.
Would the wrestlers live together or?
No, we all lived in different apartments around UC Davis, the small town of Davis, California.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I was an outsider because I had spent already 2 years down in San Jose, and then I moved to Davis. So I was a transfer, so it took me a while to kind of to get in with the guys. They've all been there like 3 or 4 years. So when I got there too, I had to take somebody's spot.
Oh, really?
So that was and then he was the team captain.
Really?
So the first wrestle off, I beat him, and then he had to go to 126, and it was nice enough, but he was the team captain, and this transfer comes in and takes his spot. I felt bad about that.
How often do D1 wrestlers have wrestle offs?
Yeah, every couple of weeks.
Really?
If there's a tournament coming up,
Dang,
they have to decide who's going to be the number 1 guy at the tournament.
I never even thought about that, but I guess so. I guess by the time, if you're a recreational wrestling enthusiast and you're watching like the Division I finals, by that time you're seeing the guys that aren't going to be worrying about wrestle offs,
Yeah.
But I guess there is this whole season, right?
Yeah.
Ahead of that.
Yeah.
So,
you want to crack the top
honestly,
spot.
never even thought about that.
Yeah, and we had like 3 or 4 guys in each division, and they're all like state place winners.
Yeah, of course.
So
you're like a small fish now.
Yeah. So
cool.
But yeah, so then I went there, and then right after I graduated, I left everything to go to South Korea.
Okay, got to tell me about this. I mean, this is becoming like statistically concerning because it seems like everybody that I have on now has gotten some kind of ties to the Far East. I'm like, it's starting to surprise me. I knew of one, and then now these stories start kind of coming back together.
Yeah.
What was the allure to South Korea?
Well, when I was in high school, I went to Japan for a couple of weeks on the California, it's a California All-Star team, and we take out a whole team out there, and we hit I think we did 6 different cities.
Okay.
And it was a cultural exchange, and you would wrestle there, the local high school, and you would change each other's jerseys or gi, or what do we call them back then? Singlets.
I think they're still called singlets.
Yeah, and it was fun, and. Yeah, and we're the Americans going over there. It was funny. It was like a little, you're like a rock star. You bring all these American guys, all these blonde hair, blue eye guys there. Except for me, I was a little Vietnamese guy. But they still, they want to talk to you and say hi to you because they don't speak English that well. And,
What city was this?
Gosh, we were in a bunch of prefectures. We hit Osaka. Of course, we were in Tokyo, Nagayo, Narita. I'd have to remember.
That's crazy, man. And all these places had collegiate wrestling or
this was
style wrestling?
high school, so it was freestyle.
Okay, so freestyle.
It was freestyle wrestling.
Okay,
so
cool. So these are clubs that are...
these are high schools that have wrestling clubs. And so,
all my time in Japan, man, obviously it's a cornerstone of martial arts, and you see a variety of different types of... but I've never seen wrestling out there, so must have been interesting.
Yeah, we'd homestay at each location. So a family would take us, 2 or 3 of us in.
Nice.
And then we'd eat Japanese food, and we'd go to the bathhouses, and we'd do what you do locally there.
That's awesome.
And I loved it. I mean, it was a big impression on me.
Yeah.
When I went back to Red Bluff, I was like, man, just back to this little town. Yeah, when I graduated, I minored in Asian American Studies.
Okay.
And so one of my classmates, she's Korean American, and asked me if I wanted to go out there. Her dad owned a company, so she said we can get jobs teaching English, and we'd travel around and do whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to jump into the workforce. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I went out there for 2 years, and
this is Korea.
Yeah, South Korea.
Was there already a job lined up, or did you have to go figure it out?
Well, funny thing is, I got out there, and within 3 months, my job security, there was what's called IMF.
Okay.
They call it that period. It's the International Monetary Fund.
Okay.
They had to bail out Korea because their banking structure collapsed.
What year was this?
98.
God, I feel like I should know that. But in 1998, I really was kind of up to no good. And
yeah, everything collapsed. So I went from I was making like $1,500 a month to $500.
Really?
Yeah. Korean won crashed.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
that's quite a.
So a lot of people left.
Your income was cutting to a third.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, but it was pretty cheap to live there. I could still live off that money there. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't send any money home.
Yeah.
So there was a mass exodus of foreigners who had lived there for a long time, and they were making good money because the won was so cheap. They were making anyway. They left, and the local university picked me up to teach.
Okay.
I said, I've just been here 2 years. I'm not really a professor. And they're like, well, we just need an associate professor. You graduated, so.
Are you doing like formal ESL, or are you doing conversational English, or?
Yeah, ESL, conversational. Yeah. At the university, it's just it's like Spanish here. You have to take a couple of years.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
are you familiar with any of the English teaching programs in Japan?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That's very, very formalized. I was kind of curious if it's the same. Is it the same in Korea?
Similar. Yeah.
Okay.
Similar to that. Yeah.
Okay.
The JET program.
The JET program. Yeah. And I had looked at that over and over and over again over the years, but you can't pick where you go.
Yeah.
No. So if I was going to go to Korea, I would want to go to Seoul or something like that. Like as an outsider, there's probably a lot better places. But
yeah, there are some programs like that, but it's more profitable there with the private academies.
Okay. Gotcha.
So there's English, science, and math are like, how education is in the East. Everybody sends their kids to private academies.
It's a priority.
Yeah.
Yeah, big priority. I mean, many could argue over prioritized, but
it definitely is.
Yeah.
I
see it with my nephews and stuff like that. The amount of homework that they have. I mean, it is a lifestyle. Doing homework.
Yeah.
What do you do for hobbies? I do my homework.
I have a foreign exchange student living at my house right now. He's been there for like 3 years.
He's been there 3 years.
He never comes out of his room.
That's an adopted child, dude.
He never comes out. Yeah.
Where's he from?
He's from South Korea.
Oh my gosh, that's nuts.
He's just he's at the Liberty Christian. He's a smart kid. He's really brilliant, but he just doesn't socialize and just studies all the time. And then when he has summer break, he goes back to Korea and goes to academies.
Takes supplemental educational stuff. Yeah.
And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I went to South Korea. 2 years became 5 years. I met my wife there, and we decided, hey, let's work for 5 years, and then we'll move back to the States. Then 5 years became 10. 10 became 15. So
what was your Korean language skills like?
Pretty good, I think. I studied formally for like a year. It was hard to learn because I'm an English teacher, so I teach English all day. Yeah. And then on the weekends, I'm getting together with foreigners, and we're just ready to speak English because we've been speaking broken English all week.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But what really honed my skills is I worked as a kindergarten teacher for 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah. This lady approached me. I was teaching at this academy, and she approached me. She said she'd like to hire me as a kindergarten teacher, and I was like, well, I heard that's a really tough gig.
Yeah, man.
But she threw a lot of money my way, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it for a year.
Yeah.
And
nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose, and I loved it. It was amazing. Yeah,
dude, you're starting to connect a few dots here.
Yeah, 4.
I'm starting to see some of these teaching genes and where they they were developed.
Yeah. 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds is what I taught.
Wow.
In the morning for 6 years.
No kidding. Did you ever think going over to Korea you were going to end up as a kindergarten teacher?
Never.
As a
never.
D1 wrestler, and you're in this room full of Neanderthals all day long, banging each other's chests.
Right.
And now
And now I'm singing songs to 3-year-olds.
Nurturing the children of the future.
It was fun. I mean, I had like a couple of teaching assistants, but I learned a lot of Korean through the kids because they spoke this broken baby Korean,
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you kind of had to negotiate a little bit with them as well. Like they're not going to be able to.
I have to figure out what they're talking about.
Yeah, they're still learning their own.
Just simple structures, I remember one time, the first time I was like, what is he saying? He was yelling from the bathroom of a little 4-year-old. It was, it wasn't like honorific speaking where, let's, for example, they would say to say hello, you would say 안녕하십니까. It's very honorific. And then if you're just saying it to your friend, you would just say 안녕.
Yeah.
So this kid is yelling something. And I asked my assistant teacher, what's he yelling? He's like, he's needs to get his butt wiped.
Oh my gosh.
He's like,
he's asking for help.
He's like literally saying, wipe my butt.
There's no honorific version of that.
So I go to the office and I tell my boss, hey, this kid's in the bathroom. He wants me to wipe his butt. And so she goes, so what'd you do? And I go, he's still in there.
I locked the door.
And she's like, go and wipe his butt. I was like, oh, no. So the assistant teacher went in there and wiped his butt for him. But
good. I'm glad to know that got handled.
Yeah, I learned a lot of wipe my nose, pick up, help me, open this, just really short phrases. And it started clicking. And all my assistant teachers were all Korean. They didn't speak English, so they would speak to me in Korean. So
nice.
So yeah, I learned a lot of Korean that way.
What about reading and writing?
Yeah, easy. Really? Easy. It's not like Japanese.
Really?
It's all phonetic.
I am shocked to hear that, man.
As soon as you learn how to read, it took me 2 weeks. You're just walking. You're looking at all the signs.
They don't have the kanji. I guess
they don't have kanji.
So
no.
You're familiar with Japanese hiragana and katakana?
Yeah.
Obviously, those are really easy, right? I mean, you just need to memorize it and practice it and whatnot. Whereas kanji is a major attritter.
Yeah. Yeah, but Japanese still is not phonetically written, right? It's you have to memorize kanji.
The hiragana and the katakana are phonetically written.
Oh, okay, okay.
And but then when you start, obviously to function outside of a kindergarten level.
Yeah.
So if I was a kindergarten teacher, you're still mixing in a lot of kanji.
Yeah.
And that's probably where my language skills would end from a reading and writing perspective.
Yeah.
But that's interesting to know. I guess that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So when you start learning how to read, it doesn't take very long. You sit down for 2 weeks and
cool.
Just memorize all the sounds.
Oh my gosh, man. That's a game changer.
Then you're starting to drive around looking at signs and that sign says car center. Oh, car center. I got it.
That's cool.
So you would read all these signs that were actually English but written in Korean.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the word for it. They don't have the word for computer back when Korean was invented, so it's computer.
Okay.
So it was fun to learn how to read and write.
That's super cool, man.
Yeah.
That was when I first started to embrace learning Japanese language with reading and writing incorporated. Because it's one thing to go out to bars and stuff like that. You just learn phrases and then you pick up sayings and you get a little bit of a language skill. But when you start to formalize it, then, like you said, all of a sudden you're looking around and the world now is vocabulary for you.
Yeah.
Until you get to the kanji. And it's like, dude, I give up.
Forget that. Yeah.
I'm going home.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome, man.
So, I ended up spending about 15 years out there.
Dang.
Yeah.
15 years. Just A to B, staying in Korea. There's no interim stops, back to the States.
I would come back in the summer. Actually, I would come to Argyle because my sister moved out here in 2005. Okay. So every couple of years, she would invite us out. She lives out in Bartonville.
Okay.
And I would bring kids out. I'd bring 3 or 4 Korean kids. And we'd come out for the summer for 2 weeks. It's like an immersion program for them. So
yeah, Argyle, dude. There's probably not that many Koreans out there.
Oh no.
Ironically, I think half our neighborhood is Korean, but
oh, okay, yeah. So,
but go out to Argyle. I wouldn't expect to see very many.
No, not very many Koreans.
At least that were from Korea that spoke Korean.
Yeah. So,
did you start training jits in Korea?
Yeah. When I was, I stopped.
You're still a wrestler, right?
Well, I was a wrestler, but I stopped wrestling. I did work out with the wrestling team, the college team there once. Everybody had a ringworm. The wrestling was crazy tough, and I'm done with this. I'm good. Yeah. So I decided
you had me at ringworm.
Yeah. So I decided I would do things like mountain bike, play basketball, rock climbing, things like that, just to keep myself entertained.
Yeah.
And then one day after basketball, this kid from Texas, he asked me if I wanted to go and try this Jiu Jitsu And I was like, yeah, I'll try it. He's like, but and then I was 38 at the time. He's like a 25-year-old kid, and he's like, okay, but remember, you're old and unathletic. And I was like, yeah, I know. I go, but I would like it. It sounds like fun. So these two kids, like 24-year-olds, take me to their gym, and it's a funny story. The guy's name is Nick Hayes. He's from New Braunfels.
Okay,
New
Braunfels, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I pick him up, and he's literally drinking a whole liter of Coke.
Okay,
I thought we were gonna go train, and he's like,
pre-workout.
And this is the best story because he says to me, he's like, Paul, remember, you're old and you're unathletic. He goes, I'm 24 and I'm athletic.
Does he know you're a Division I?
No,
athlete?
I didn't tell anybody that. I didn't tell anybody.
Say, like, dude.
They all thought I was just this guy who kind of played basketball. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, yeah, you're right. You
don't have a basketball build either.
No. I just learned on the go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went the first night, and I don't know what the lesson was, but we were learning like side control and getting escaping guard.
It's a formal BJJ school.
Not really, no, because at the time, his Professor Cho, his coach Cho at the time, he is just a purple belt that just moved back from. His background is he spent a couple of years at Novinhão in Brazil.
Okay. And
then a couple of years with Eddie Bravo.
Okay, cool. That's a pretty diverse background then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So he was good. And then when we sparred, I just mashed everyone. I just like, okay, they would pull guard and I just jump right on. I just like do a cartwheel over the top of them and just smash them. And I just end up, and then like I saw things like I kind of knew how an arm bar worked, like the spinning arm bar is like, so.
What year is this?
This is 2008.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it's popular.
Yeah,
it's really popular.
Yeah.
I mean, it's humming in the States at least. I don't know what's going on in Korea.
This is like the first school in Daejeon, I think, or the second school, I don't remember. But so, it kind of brought me back to wrestling because I grappled we did like for 2 hours. And, I mean, I was pumped. I was like, wow, this is just like wrestling. And I hadn't wrestled in like 8 years by that point, I guess. Yeah. So, he in the ride home, he's like, bro, you never told me you wrestled. Yeah, right. He goes, where did you wrestle? And I told him, yeah, it's a school in DC Davis, this D1 school in California. He's like, bro,
I've been wrestling since middle school.
And you didn't bother to tell anyone?
Tell him, man. It's due diligence. That's not my fault that you don't know how to do your due diligence.
Yeah. So we're still good friends to this day, and we talk back. He's still a purple belt. He's been on and off training there. Of course, in Korea.
This podcast is for him then, man.
Yeah. I can't wait to tell him that I'm on this podcast.
He's a 10-year purple belt.
Yeah, he's been there for a while.
Why is he still purple belt? Out of curiosity, like, is there nobody that can promote him, or is he
he just takes time off.
Refuse to get promoted? Or?
Yeah, well, the COVID hit there, so nobody could train, and even now they still train with masks.
Dude, I see that stuff I see it. Obviously I have an affinity for Japan, and I watch some of the folks down in Okinawa training.
Yeah,
dude. I don't know what South Korea is like, but I mean, in Okinawa, I don't want to wear a mask in the winter, you know, especially in a humid summer.
Before COVID, everybody wore masks.
Oh, really?
It's so polluted there, and the air, there's.
Oh, no kidding.
Every year you check the air. Every day you check the air quality. Like, what's the index today?
And a little N3 mask is going to make a difference?
Not really.
I mean, does it feel different? I mean,
I never wore a mask, but a lot of people wear masks, and
I was never into that either.
Yeah. Well, they'd even wear like things that would cover their nose and mouth, and then big hats. They don't want to get sun.
Yeah, that's a big one, dude. Yeah, I can empathize with that one.
The sleeves and the gloves when they would drive. They wouldn't want to get sun on their arms.
Yeah.
So
a lot of people don't understand that. Like, the mask thing is like, first of all, if you have the sniffles or something like that, there is a little bit of just like common courtesy. It's not like nobody is claiming that this is going to prevent the spread of this. It's just that, like, no, it's a cultural thing. It's a common courtesy. We put a mask on because I might be sick, or I don't want you to see my runny nose.
The density there is just
insane.
Exactly.
Get on a train.
Train or a bus. Yeah. I'm squeezed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting on the bus and all I could smell was kimchi and soju every morning.
Dude, that sounds terrible.
It was the worst thing in the morning is 5 a.m. on a bus going to work, and all it smells is kimchi and soju.
Is there a kimchi in your house?
Yeah.
You
We
guys
always have kimchi. Yes.
So the question is that I've learned with Koreans is, do you have a separate refrigerator
Well, we don't, but we do actually. We have a second refrigerator in the garage, but
for kimchi?
No, we don't have the kimchi refrigerator.
Okay, it seems like that's like a common thing.
Oh yeah, everyone has a kimchi refrigerator.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, a buddy of mine was talking to me about that. His parents, I mean, he was born in the United States, but his parents are both immigrants from Korea. And he's like, oh man, he was like, dude, whenever anybody came to my house when I was a kid, it was like a thing.
Well, you need it. Sometimes you open that fridge and it's like, whoa.
I mean, it is fermented food.
Yeah,
so
right.
Which the stronger it smells, I mean, probably the better it is for you. I mean, like
right. It has to be fermented, and it's not. It tastes good. I like to eat it. So
I do too, man. I do too. Well, now that I know, so your wife's Korean.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Well, now that I know that, first of all, she'll have to meet my wife so she can spread some intel on Korean dramas, which are.
Yeah. That's all on Netflix now.
Dude, I know, man. Believe me, I know. It's hitting our frequently watched box on our account. So, but anyway.
So yeah. So
that was the intro into BJJ.
Yeah.
So you said it wasn't a jiu-jitsu school. What was it? Just
no, it was jiu-jitsu. It was definitely jiu-jitsu.
It was just Coach Joe, wasn't it?
Yeah, Coach Joe. He had trained us there for a year. I can't remember. It was for a year. We trained under him. And the first tournament we went to, one of our guys, he's a judo guy, gets his knee blown out. The other guy jumps guard, lands right on his knee.
Oh, really?
And you know how it is in Korea when you're like you're the owner, you're the master, and you're responsible for everyone. Mm-hmm. So he closed his gym after that.
Really?
He felt so bad about it because he said, that's my fault. I never taught you guys that somebody would jump guard on you.
Wow, man.
And that could happen. So, I mean, he sold it and he left. He went back to Brazil for a year and a half, I remember. Yeah. So that was like, he was distraught. He's like,
no kidding.
He took it. It was his responsibility to keep us safe, and one of his students major damage to his knee.
Wow.
And so yeah. So
do you think any of that spills into your mentality as a gym owner today? I mean,
yeah. I want to take care of the guys.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's why I asked. I think the guys that are listening will probably have said the same thing. They'll probably be like, oh.
They'll joke around about something. I was like, no, don't joke around. I don't know. Necks, knees, backs, guys, please take care of yourself.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Spencer always reminds me that he remembers my first words to him, and he was in the finals of his first tournament. Uh-huh. I babied him for I think it was 3 or 4 months. Just private lessons for 4 months. Because we only had 6 guys.
Yeah, he was one of your first guys, right? Yeah.
And he's going out to the finals, and the guy's 250, and he's got a mohawk.
He's clearly taking it more serious.
The gis, they're kind of they can be tight or loose.
Yeah.
But you can see his muscles in his gi.
Okay, yeah, muscle definition of the gi is typically a concern.
Spencer's just 4 or 5 months, white belt. He's kind of pudgy. And he's like, any words for me, coach, before this match? And I said, it's not too late, man. It's not just please don't get hurt. This is not, look at that guy.
Was it like a world league or anything?
Yeah, it was like Naga or one of those tournaments.
Okay, cool.
And I just said, hey man, don't get hurt and don't be afraid to tap.
That's awesome.
I was so worried about him because this guy I saw his semifinal match. He was just a monster.
Spencer told me that he said he basically had to sneak into competing.
Yeah.
He said he asked you like 100 times, like, can I, do you think I'm ready to compete? You're like, no,
I would not. I was like,
and he said one day he just came in and said, hey, I mean, I that was before I had met Spencer, but like where I picked up on him, we trained in Maine together. And I remember, like, obviously, like, we're both from the same area. And so we just kind of hung out for a little while. And then he's like, yeah, you want to roll? I'm like, sure. I was a purple belt. He was a blue belt. And dude, I was like, dang. I mean, he gave me a run, bro. I mean, and probably won. I mean, I don't know. So it's hard for me to imagine him, not doing well in a tournament. But, I mean, he's one of your first guys. And you've got that background.
He's the second guy who signed up at my school.
No kidding.
Yeah. We had a pre-sign up like 2 months before COVID. And he and a couple other guys they're still there. So he's like we call it organically grown blue belt, purple belt now.
Purple belt now.
So yeah,
That's
everyone else has come to me through other schools and other locations.
That's really cool.
So,
We'll have to get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So Korea, if I know the story correctly, and like you didn't tell me this, I think I might have just heard it. But I mean, did you live in other parts of Asia as well? I mean, did you live in the Philippines?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we left Korea in 2017. I got my brown belt by that point. I was a terrible
Coach Cho's back in.
Yeah, he came back after a year and a half, and he got his brown.
Dude, that is crazy.
He got his brown belt. I was training at another school. When he got back, I immediately jumped back in with Professor Cho, Coach Cho at the time, and it's just a grind. And we start training like at 6. We don't quit till like 1.
Really?
Yeah, we would just train
6 a.m. to 1 p.m.
6 p.m. to 1 a.m.
6 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems a little aggressive.
Oh man. Yeah, we had a midnight class.
Damn.
Working at the university.
Dude, that sounds so Korean, man.
Yeah.
Like, come to the midnight class. We had
because
you're doing homework every other hour.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
I don't know if you're accounting for every other hour of the day.
It might be the same in Japan, but when Koreans do one thing, they do it all out.
Oh, dude, fanaticism.
Yeah.
Straight up in Japan.
I remember this white belt comes in one day. He's got this amazing shoyorogi. Fingers are taped to the T. He's got the best rash guard on. And I was like, man, this guy's good. This guy's probably good. And I was like, so how long you been training? And he says, this is my first day.
He bought the kit.
He got the
kit, man. They probably had his stripes pre-cut and hung up on the wall. Like every 6 months, I'm going to take one of these stripes off.
Yeah. So when they decide to do something, they're full in.
Anything, good or bad. I remember when I first I was military there in the 90s, and then when I went back in 2017, I went to Tokyo to do a language school, and I trained at Carpe Diem there. Really good affiliation in Tokyo and now throughout the whole world. But it was my first time to train jiu-jitsu in Asia, and then obviously in Japan as well. And I've obviously been, I know Japanese culture really well, and I'm like, this is gonna be interesting because jiu-jitsu is kind of chill, and Japanese, especially given the martial arts background and whatnot. Like if you go to a judo school, it's very formal, right? They grow up in schools, and it wasn't like that at all, man. These guys were fanatics about it being chill.
Oh, wow.
I'm just gonna lay on my side. I'm gonna, take my shirt off.
Yeah.
And it was ultra, laid back in a good way, not in a disrespectful way or anything like that. But they're like, no. This is the way that I understand this culture to be, and so we're gonna go all in on it.
Yeah, yeah, they're all in. I was lucky too to be an expat because I could travel around Korea and train, and I can drop in. But when you are Korean training at one school, you never train at another school.
Is that right?
It's like
just frowned upon.
Yeah, you don't do. And plus,
interesting.
There's a jiu-jitsu school every 4 or 5 blocks.
No kidding.
So
in Korea,
yeah. Oh man, there's a ton now.
Really?
It's like
interesting.
It'll be like a jiu-jitsu, yoga, Pilates, all on one, like called multi gyms. But, and it's kind of gotten watered down because now any blue belt or purple belt will just open up a gym.
Okay.
So, like Professor Cho is, he's been doing it for 20 years, and his school should be the biggest. But he's, because people don't want to get on the subway and drive and go down like 20 minutes. They'd rather just walk around the corner and jump in, and
I guess it depends what your objectives are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
are they? Do they to this day continue to like just kind of X out cross training or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just depends on. But Professor Cho came out here last year, and we got to train at 555. And
no kidding.
Yeah, he got to train with us, and he did a little seminar at the school, and everyone got to meet him.
I wonder why I didn't know that.
He was there just 1 or 2 days. He was hurt. But he got to train with us, and he was really impressed with 555. And he was just like,
awesome.
He told me, like, I can't believe you get to train here like every day. And I was like, no, I know, I can't believe it. I should probably train here every day, but it's just like once a week. And
a lot of us pinching ourselves,
So he was just, and he was really impressed with my jiu-jitsu.
Wow. Did he give you your black belt?
No, he gave me my brown belt.
He gave you up the brown belt?
I'm sorry. Yeah, brown belt. Before, in 2017, he gave me a brown belt.
Okay.
But if you ask him, like, when I was white and blue. Like how will Paul do in jiu-jitsu? He would just be like, oh, terrible.
He's you're cartwheeling over people.
Terrible student.
Yeah,
terrible student. I would lose my belt. I would lose my gi.
Oh no.
He goes, when do you start doing jiu-jitsu? And I was like, well, I am. He goes, no, you wrestling. And I was like, I know, but I'm gonna learn. So I think it was when I was a purple belt that I just said, okay, I'll just play on my back and see how it goes. And it was terrible.
Yeah,
I was the worst. Everyone passed my guard and smashed me, and so I had to learn the hard way.
Do you think from that perspective, it sounds like wrestling was a little bit of a hindrance?
It was.
It got you as far as it got you, but then exactly left a few holes.
Yeah, when you get on your back, I have no guard game. Only thing I had was butterfly.
Okay.
Because
that's interesting. Oh.
Yeah, I think it's because my wrestling is overhook, underhook, and I would throw guys.
Yeah, like a little lat drop type thing.
Headlock, like lat drops. So butterfly guard allowed me to do like lat drops.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Or it allowed me to get up.
I guess it's sort of the same mechanics.
So it's either lat drop or whizzer.
Okay.
So depending on where the guy passed my guard, I could just whizzer out, and then I could throw him back over. So that was my game. It was not that great, but so yeah. So there was like military bases in Korea I would go to on the weekend, and then I spent a year.
Could you get into military bases?
Yeah, you'd have to sign in and give your ID and everything.
Gosh, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, back then, just as long as you have an ID, I had a passport. So, but then I spent a year taking the.
So what would you do on military bases? I mean, you could just go in and just go train, or
you go to you meet up with the jiu-jitsu school, the club, and you train, and afterwards you get to go to the mess hall, or you can go to.
Dang.
You can get good food.
This was not my experience at all.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, so back then, we would go watch the softball
Probably
game.
Marine thing. It was just we're crazy about everything.
Yeah, no, it was, and then of course how crowded it is in Korea. When you get on base, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's landscaping. There's sidewalks.
Yeah, and Patriot missiles. I mean, dude, it's a little intimidating. I had been to Korea in the military, and I remember landing. I'm like, dude, those are freaking Patriot missiles that are facing north. Dude,
I thought they were just props.
A little scary. No, I think they're the real deal,
thing. Yeah,
man.
yeah, right.
I think. I don't know. Like, I mean, again, I was kind of a nobody, but I'm like, send me back to Japan, man. I think I'll take my chances.
Yeah. So quick shout out to Professor Chris Kim, who I got to train under for like a year. Every Sunday I would take the train up to Seoul. It's like 1 hour. It's the KTX. What's the speed train there in Japan?
The Shinkansen.
Yeah, it's like that. So
yeah. Okay.
I would train for like an hour and a half with Professor Kim, Chris Kim. He's under De La Riva. Like,
oh wow! So we share the same lineage.
Yeah, he was from. I think he's from Virginia.
Okay.
His professor was under De La Riva.
Oh wow! So cool. Yeah, it's a very close lineage.
Yeah. So
where was he at? He was at one of the bases.
He was in Seoul. He actually was. Yeah, he was. He also was the instructor for the base.
Okay.
He's one of the guys. His YouTube. He was one of the first guys that had 100,000.
No kidding.
Jiu-jitsu
for jiu-jitsu, dude. Korean jiu-jitsu videos are like probably everything Korean. They're super high quality and whatnot.
Yeah.
Both from a production perspective, but also like the technique and stuff. I mean, you can get into it, and I'm like watching. I'm like, damn, dude, that's really intricate.
They love that. Well,
I don't know if I could personally do it or not, but
a lot of that's for show.
For show.
Barambola to omoplata to like jump over something.
Yeah.
But no, he's a Korean American, so the production's okay. It was hosted by BJJ Joe, I believe.
Okay.
If you ever want to get on there and see some of his videos, he's really good.
Okay. What's it? BJJ Joe is his YouTube channel?
That's a YouTube channel that picked up his that picked up his instructions when he was in Korea. Not very many, probably less than 25 videos.
Okay.
But it was instruction in English.
Oh wow!
So that was a difference.
You, that's probably
that was like wow, yeah,
especially being out there.
Yeah. So all the other instruction was in Korean. It wasn't very conceptual. It was just do this, do that, do this. But Professor Chris Kim would break it down for me, and I was like, man, this is a different realm. So, and then I'd spend an hour going back on the train and just be writing down everything I learned.
Yeah.
And reading it, and so.
Wow, it's a real student then.
Yeah.
That's cool. Way to take advantage of it, I guess.
Yeah. And then I would teach that to some of the students the next week, exactly what I learned.
Really?
That way I would hone those skills in. And so, and another side note, when I was a purple belt in my neighborhood, some of the parents knew I was doing jiu-jitsu. So they kind of were interested. They weren't sure what it was, but they were like, hey, can you teach our kids? Mm-hmm. And there was a little space available in our building, I think it was like $500 a month. I got some mats in there and I opened a school.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
so I mean, this goes way back.
Yeah,
man.
that must have been 2015, I guess. 2015.
We'll get into Argyle Jiu-Jitsu in a bit, but I mean, as a side note on that, or a related note, I mean, I think generally speaking, people view you as a really good, especially with the kids. Like it seems like that's where some of your passions are at. I mean, you've got great adult students as well, but I watched you with the kids, and I didn't realize how far back that went, even to being a kindergarten teacher.
Further than that,
really? What would the roots be then?
So when I was in high school, my girlfriend was a swimmer.
Okay.
And I think it was the summer of my junior year. She's like, "Hey, why don't you take the swimming instructor's course with me, and then we'll get jobs." And I was like, "Oh, okay, we'll do it." I didn't know how to swim, but I passed. And for 2 years, my junior and senior year, during the summer, I instructed swimming.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. So you've got this from all the way back in high school.
Yeah,
man. That's
high
awesome.
school. And then that was my part-time job every summer until I graduated. I would pick a place and I would go teach swim instruction, and it's just kind of like jiu-jitsu. You have to learn the fundamentals of swimming before you can swim. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the summer, I would actually have taught hundreds of kids how to do, freestyle or backstroke. Yeah. Or just, even the little ones, how to get a piece of toy off the ground, so.
How do you think that, like, I mean, you brought up a really interesting point, and just a quick story. I mean, you and I were talking before. I mean, Zach has been gracious enough to let me come in and just sort of be a shadow for a while. Mm-hmm. He told me last week, he said, we're doing punch defense. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I got that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu book off the shelf and I studied it, so I refamiliarized myself with it. Yeah. And then, I mean, from a student perspective, I mean, forget being a teacher. I mean, just from a student perspective, I found it super valuable. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going up to Seoul. You're taking high level lessons from somebody that is, it sounds like a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner and teacher. You're memorializing all of those lessons, and then you're reapplying them with students of your own. Yeah. I mean, like that must have been sort of elevating, I guess. I don't know, game changer or not, but I mean.
Yeah. But I was also a teacher, so I know that I could see the flaws in jiu-jitsu, the way they teach, the methodology. Like, hey, we're just gonna drill this, and then we're gonna, the typical, hey, we're gonna learn these two techniques, and then we're gonna spar. Yeah. And I went through that, and it's okay, it's good. You get a lot of sparring in. Got a lot of injuries through that. They put me up against a lot of the big guys since I was the wrestler too, so I'd go against guys that were 200 pounds, and they would just, sometimes it would stack me, and I hurt my neck pretty bad in 2014. I can't believe it was for a year. My neck was jacked.
That's a concerning injury.
So I was like, I thought I was gonna have to quit. I remember getting up, popping in some ibuprofen, and going, man, I don't know if I can come back from this. This is, I took like 3 or 4 months off. Yeah. And I was.
Did you actually take off?
Yeah. Well, I would go in, I would watch. I would probably coach a little bit, but yeah, I was unmotivated, and I was like, man, And of course, when I said, "Hey, coach, man, my neck, it's pretty bad." I went to the doctor. They were saying, immediately they were like, "This is an emergency. You need a fusion." I was like, "No, I'll get a second." I got a second opinion. Luckily, one of my students was a doctor, and he saw my MRI, and he's like, "No, you don't need a fusion. Just take some time off." And
it's amazing how far apart people's opinions can be.
Yeah. So.
Based on what maybe their motivations are.
Yeah. So, and
not to hop around all over the place, but I mean, even right now, like, I know, having talked to you and trained with you, you've got a pretty interesting and effective way to manage your own training. I mean, like, in many ways, your body is part of your product, right? Like, you have to be able to let people work on their technique on your body. So you more so than the average person, you need to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, you continue to train, and you are on the mats. Yeah. I don't know how many hours a week, but how do you balance all that?
Depends on the level of my student. I know where they need help. I'll let them work on passing my guard, and I'm pretty, like, even if they're big and strong, I don't mind them passing my guard, and then I'll just play on the bottom for a little bit. I don't really try to escape. Let them I'll see if they go knee on belly, if they're going to go north south. But I think my defense is good enough now that I don't have to really worry about getting injured too much. So, And yeah, like you said, it's not, this is my product. I'm not gonna just smash. Sometimes I'll put my smash ones on and just smash them, and just let them remember, hey, I can still choke you, but most of the time it's just letting them work through the position, seeing, when they go against other lower level or white belts or blue belts, how it is. Once they get side control, they're not relinquishing. And I was like, well, God, just put your knee on belly. If he gets out, you recover. But so and that takes a long time to learn. Is like, let these guys work their guard pass, let them work on side control. If you get submitted, I'm really like, I'm the first person to let them submit me. But they have to work for it. I can't just give it to them, but and it's good for them.
That's a good lesson to hear. That's something I'm still working on as well. I mean, one, getting good defense, but two, just like kind of keeping my ego in check and saying like, okay, cool, like I lost this, no matter who it is. It's tough. What was it like when you first opened up? I mean, you didn't have, like, now you've got some killers in there. I mean, really good guys that I've had the benefit of training with. If I go down to an open mat at your gym or to a normal class, I mean, I'm going to get good rounds in, but I mean, you got to start somewhere. And I'm sure those early days, you don't have as many guys to throw at each other, like you kind of need to use your body a little bit more, presumably. You just have to fight through it. You just battle through it, or
no? I mean, I just keep consistent, and just stick with the curriculum. And before I opened up in Argyle, I actually spent a year in the Philippines, and I got to run a school there as well. I was lucky.
It sounds like you're destined to be an instructor, man.
I didn't want to. I didn't. So after we left Korea, I was like, am I going to come to America and get back into education? I wasn't really too psyched about that. I took a job at Amazon, and that was pretty tough.
That was in Korea?
That was in 2018 here in Capel.
Oh, okay.
So after I work a 10-hour shift, I'd go down to Muller's. At that time, he was in Capel.
And
I'd get a couple.
One of the warehouses there. Yeah, that's where I met him as well.
Yeah, I would train a couple of times there a week with some animals. They were tough.
Yeah, Rocky and all his.
I was just like, I was kind of an outsider. I just went in, got my rounds in, then I would drive back home, and then I knew I needed those rounds to sharpen my skills, and then I would also drive up to Corinth Jiu Jitsu Tech with Rob.
Okay, yeah, dude, Rob's legit, man.
And I would train there with his students, and at the time he was kind of a new school and mostly white belts and blue, and they had lighter guys, so I could just, my whole thing there was I'm just going to play on my back and just work on my guard. So two different schools, I have very different objectives with each.
Yeah.
And after a year, I ended up getting recruited to go and work in the Philippines, and so
you had moved from Korea back to the United States, and then you got recruited. Okay, cool, interesting. I thought we had skipped over it, but it sounds like that's
that was 2019. Yeah, 2019. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went there for a year. It was I was going to check it out. If it was a good situation, I could move my whole family out there. They have school. They have good private schools out there.
Dude, there's no correlation whatsoever between the Philippine Islands and the Republic of Korea. Dude.
No, I learned very quick. After the first 3 months, I was like, okay, I'll spend my year here.
I'll spend my year.
I'll do my year here.
What were you doing? Teaching?
No, I was working at this outsourcing company.
Okay.
So I was managing a bunch of teams that we outsourced here. Actually, a lot of businesses here in Dallas.
Yeah.
So and they also the CEO he was a blue belt in Jiu Jitsu, so he had a little gym in the warehouse.
Oh man.
So I was going to be the one helping him build that gym.
Did that help you in the interview process?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I was in the Philippines. I'd gone there twice for tournaments, and so he knew me when I went out there, and I trained. He trained, and when I trained with him, he's like he liked my skills. So.
I was only joking, but it sounds like it's actually a big part of it.
When I was out there training a year before that. I can't remember when I was out there, but. We trained, and he was like, "Hey, man, we need a new account manager here, and and we'd love to have you come and open. I want to open a school, a jiu-jitsu school." And I was like, 2 for 1. So it was tough. That I didn't, I was working the night shift, so I'd have to stay up all night, then get a few hours in the morning, like 4 to 8 a.m. I'd sleep. Then go back and maybe do a private, and then an afternoon class sometimes, and then get some more sleep, and then the night class, and then work my shift from like 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Jeez, man. Is this Manila?
This is up near Clark Air Force. It used to be an Air Force base up there.
I remember it.
So
shut down after the big volcano.
Yeah, it was a volcano, and the Philippines took it over, and there's a lot of it's thriving right now. It's really good.
It's called like a special economic zone or something like that.
Yeah.
I've been there.
It's nice, but when you leave Clark, it's like a base. When you leave the gated area, you're back in Angeles.
Yeah, dude, it's rough, man. I could never get used to that poverty.
No,
it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
Ironically, I went there after 9/11. I got activated. I was a reservist, and I got called back to active duty. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'm going to go to Afghanistan. And they gave me orders to the Philippines.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Where were you?
At that special economic zone.
Oh, in Clark?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
For a very short period of time. Like, we went out there to work with some Filipino Marines. And they had like a terrorism prevention unit or something. I don't remember. The Abasayef or something was hanging around in the Philippines at the time. And so, but anyway, I mean, kind of I guess it's a total side note, but I know that area, and that's
terrible.
It was terrible. The poverty is just, I mean, it's hard to be around that. It really was.
Yeah,
straight up third world.
It was. It's heartbreaking sometimes.
It is heartbreaking. Man. I mean, that's exactly the word I would use to it. Like little kids sleeping on.
7-Eleven. I would go to 7-Eleven and grab when there would be like 4 or 5 kids there, and I just grab whatever chicken I can get and go out there and start handing it. But I would just get there was like 5 kids out there, and I come out with some chicken. There's like 20 kids.
Yeah.
And they're not nice about it. I was like, here, you get one. I give it to a little 6-year-old. This little 10-year-old just comes and smacks him and takes it.
Yeah.
I was like, Ronnie, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, so
1 year.
I got lucky too there because this is where I met Professor Jeffrey Kalma.
Okay. Just Checkmat?
Checkmat, yeah.
Okay.
And his professor is under Leo Vera. And so very traditional. He spent 6 years with 200 black belts in Abu Dhabi.
Wow.
So he's American. He's half American, half Filipino. But when he teaches jiu-jitsu, he has a Brazilian accent.
Does he really?
It's hilarious.
That's awesome. Does he know this?
He kind of knows it, but so fun. A really good guy. I got to see him last year. Went on and trained there. But so a year I got to train. He's very traditional.
Okay.
Like he's like a Brazilian.
Okay.
And it's like, now again, the language is hilarious. They're in the classes, guys, when you get this position, don't let up, guys, And it's like, and then after class, we're just speaking English. And
exactly. Tell me about that position.
He's hilarious.
That's cool. I guess, I mean, that's probably like him emulating his own teachers. And
whatnot, right.
Which is funny because we do that sometimes.
Yeah, he spent years just teaching jiu-jitsu in Abu Dhabi, so
that's awesome, man.
So I got a good year, about 10 months under him, and it was transformative. Like, man, this is real jiu-jitsu. He was teaching the basics, the fundamentals, and then I would learn that. There were things that he was teaching. You know how that is. Oh man, I've been doing jiu-jitsu how long, and this is the first time I realized this.
Yeah. So somebody opens your eyes to a whole new like, I mean, there's like, I feel like now, like there's little lightning moments where I kind of call it opening a new zip code. There's zip codes, but then there's whole areas too. Where it's like, wow, I just didn't even know this existed.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It was,
It's interesting that you picked that up. I mean, so far in your journey too.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I wish I could spend another year under him because he's just standard, basic, good stuff.
Yeah.
And but I ended up finding out, a lot about where he got it because I just got that Blue Belt Essentials from Hodger Gracie.
Oh, I saw that out there.
It's good.
Is it?
It's like,
what is it, like a series of videos and stuff?
Yeah,
I mean, I keep seeing it pop up. I mean, it's like fed to me daily. Like, go buy this.
Good.
Now that I know somebody that's got it.
Yeah, if you want to borrow it, I have it. Hodger Gracie's Blue Belt Essentials. It's just basic, good jiu-jitsu. You can't go wrong with it. I mean, if you're teaching that, you're not doing anything wrong. I mean, it's Hodger. So, then all my guys are big, so I like teaching the big guy stuff.
Yeah, you do have some big guys.
Yeah, so if
you're splitting your guys up between 220 and over and 220 and under, I mean, that kind of tells you, like, I mean, if I'm getting the under, then something's wrong.
We have a 170 and under, and we're growing that. But but most of our guys are 215. 6 foot 215 is our average.
That sounds about right.
But they all came in at like 235 though.
Yeah,
you know how that goes. They just drop the weight and they're at
100%. Man.
Yeah.
That movement on a routine basis, man. I mean, it's going to shed a layer if you have it. For
yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So
For sure.
So yeah, long story short, I spent a year there in the Philippines, came back, and I decided that, you know what, this is what I want to do is teach Jiu Jitsu. I really loved it.
And you got your black belt in the Philippines?
Yeah, he gave me,
Nice.
Yeah.
Surprise? Or
No, this is like,
or do you know what was going to happen? Or?
He told me, he's like, when our first roll, I think I submitted him with a Darce.
Okay.
And he's like, bro, you got where did you learn you got skill? And I was like, I've just been around. I don't know. I learned lots. And he's like, no, man, you're he was telling me all these praises, and he's like, I was like, oh, he was really good about that. He's just like, your level's high, man. I've been training lots with Brazilians, and you. And I was like, well, thank you, I appreciate it, and so yeah, he said, and then I was like, I think I'm gonna go back early, like in 3 months, because this is not where I should be.
Yeah. And
he's like, stay here for 1 year, bro. I'll give you your black belt. And I was like, okay, I'll do it, and stuck it out.
That's cool.
Gave me his black belt.
Very good lineage. Good place to have it from. And it sounds like you guys have a good mutual respect for one another.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I came back here during that, while I was there for a year. I did come back to see my family a couple times, and I found out Formiga opened a gym in Double Five.
Mm-hmm. Did you know of Formiga before? Or?
I did not. No.
Yeah.
So I went out there and trained a couple of times while I was here, and I was like,
were you guys living in Argyle?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would have been a nearby gym.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like now there's a lot of stuff.
I didn't want to drive to. There's a couple other gyms that I'd been to, and went down there and started training. Trained a few times, and I was like, man, this place is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I said, when I come back, I'm definitely going to sign up. But for me, I talked to him, and then I said, at that point, I thought, but when I got back, I'm just going to open my own school. Mm-hmm. And of course, I got back. We started building out in January or February. And then
that's 2020.
2020, and then I hear this is COVID, and
I
was like, well, I'm just gonna open in March. I already had I had like 25 pre-signups, and I was like, okay, well, at least we have 25. And then there was 3 guys came in.
Yeah, man.
So I was like, well, luckily I got the cheap rent, and I just said, we'll just go through it. Just not killing. We have some savings, so we can just. And then 10 people every month showed up.
Yeah, just kept growing.
Just kept growing. Yeah. And
I guess in some ways it was like the perfect time, because you hit it at the bottom, and then people are crawling out of the woodworks to do something other than sit and self-isolate.
They're like, do you have anything for kids? Because my kids are driving me crazy.
Good point.
And I was like, I do. I was like, bring them in.
Yeah.
And they're like,
do you bread and butter?
They're like, do you wear masks? And I was like, no. I mean, it's up to you, but you can't really wear a mask doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Unless you're in Korea or Japan or.
It's right.
And then somehow you can.
And people are pretty conservative in Argyle, so they're like, well, we're not wearing masks.
Yeah, dude.
And I was like, okay, well, bring them in. And then, our kids program grew. We grew our kids program faster than our adults. Of course, that's the way it goes. But
yeah.
And by the end of the summer, I think it was up to 70 students.
When did you didn't start off with as much space as you've got, right?
No, it was 1,500 square feet.
Okay, that was the original space, and then...
Almost all mat space, though, so you had to walk around and, be careful. You would trip, so...
Which one was it? Because you've since doubled it, I think.
Yeah, the same space.
Maybe tripled it, I don't know.
It's doubled. It's the same space, but now doubled.
Okay. So, which one was your first one? The one on the end, or the...
Yeah, the one on the side where you walk in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. So then you just kind of knocked the wall down basically, and
we knocked
opened it up.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a nice open gym. It's clean and tons of mat space, and
So I was hoping that we'd grow into that mat space, so that's why it's like, add a few more square footage.
I love those. I love the like Anthony Kranz has a gym like yours with the roll up doors. I love it, man. It just gets a good vibe,
especially when it's
nice outside. I mean, now granted, it is like that gives you 3 or 4 days a year you can probably do.
You do it. You can spring. You take
we're in that season now.
Right now we're in the season. We open up at night. Yeah, it gets hot in there, so we just open it up. And
that's awesome, man. I love that vibe.
Yeah.
I like.
Yeah, for the tournament we opened them up, and all the guys with trucks backed in. And put the tailgates down.
Jeez, talk about Argyle. That's so Argyle.
Yeah. So I don't think anybody. It was still a little bit too windy or cold, so not a lot of people took advantage of that. They stayed inside.
Is that right?
So I opened and I said, we'll do it. And 3 years later, we're at where we are.
That's awesome, man. So what's it like? I mean, you've done, I mean, that's a heck of a journey, man. I mean, I didn't know you spent as long as you did in Korea, and I had no idea that you'd come back to the States. It sounds like you had a family here, your sister or something?
My sister lives
That's
out
what brought
here.
you to Argyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering where that came from.
Yeah, I could have gone back to Sacramento where my brother and my mom and my sister live, but my older sister's like, you should move out to Argyle.
Yeah.
And it's good education out here for the kids, you know.
Dude,
so
it's
Argyle's a good place to
bread
live.
and butter place to raise your kids. I mean, that's what we're doing here as well. Now, of course, our kids are, out of the house, and we're like, oh man, what are we doing here? Starting to lose some of the allure, all those great things, But now Formiga's here, so what am I going to do, man? I'm not going anywhere.
No.
What is it like? I mean, now, of course, like I'll see you in the gym at night, you've got some students that run, like I love Spencer's Friday night class.
Yeah.
I go to, like, as long as I can go to it, I will go to it.
Yeah.
Cause it's good to drill, and he takes it so seriously. He really takes the burden and the responsibility of teaching to heart. And so I'll see you in there, you're overseeing it, but then you've got like stuff going on in the background and whatnot. Like you've got a lot of hats that you've got to wear.
Yeah.
What is it like, being a gym owner, being an active black belt, having, you've gone through the phases where you had 0 students, and now,
we have
a couple hundred
students now, and letting my guys now start teaching some of the classes. Like Spencer said, hey, we should do a drillers class. And I was like, well, Friday's my day off.
What was Friday normally, an open mat?
Yeah, open mat.
Got it.
Yeah. I planned it to teach 4 days a week, but then have a couple of days of open mat.
Yeah. Those are important.
That'll give me a chance to train a couple of days a week, and then teach. You put a lot of effort in teaching, and then just take 3 days for myself. Yeah. And those 3 days I never take off. I'm training. I'm going to a seminar. I'm going to a tournament. So
yeah.
So
especially with kids, man. I mean, those kids tournaments are taxing.
Man. Yeah, they are. Yeah. So he asked me to do it. It's a fundamentals. It's a drillers make killers class, and I said, "Do it, go for it." He's really organized. He has his notebook. He comes in, and he's got an hour of drilling.
Yeah,
it's not Brazilian drilling. 1, 2, do 1,000 of them in 1 minute.
Yeah,
it's just like positional drilling, and the response has been all 10, 15 guys are showing up.
Yeah,
that's
I've been a couple times, and it's been a full house, man.
Yeah,
it's been a full house.
Yeah, I appreciate him coming out and doing that for me, because I
appreciate him putting it on as well. Because that's exactly what I was looking for. It was a place where I could go and drill and just kind of go into that sort of mindless zone of just getting into it.
Yeah,
and he teaches it well, so I like it. You might not agree with this, and this might not be how you want to be characterized. So forgive me if this is the case. But I mean, you have been known as a really good kids instructor. Like I see you interact with the kids, and it seems like you're in your element. And we've got mutual friends who I know who send their kids to you, and I know they've got multiple options. And like Tristan, for example, I mean, he's pretty picky when it comes to this stuff, and he's like, no, I'm going to send him over to Paul's. And what tips do you have for somebody that's opening a gym up, and I mean, having a good kids program is a really key element of having a successful and a profitable gym.
Yeah.
What sort of advice would you give to that person?
You got to make sure you have the right ages together.
Yeah.
4-year-old's very different than an 8-year-old.
I noticed that the other night at Zach's.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh. I've even been around a 4-year-old in a long time.
So you have to have 2 different classes, maybe 3. Right now I'm lucky. I have 2 different classes.
Okay. How do you break them up?
4, 5, and 6-year-olds. And then there's the age of 7 is a little different, because sometimes a 7-year-old is ready for the big kids, and sometimes they're not. So 7-year-olds can go into my 4, 5, and 6-year-old classes, and then 8 to 12. And then after that, the teenagers can join the teen class, which is which with the adults, but they still need to be training with teens. So I make it a teen class.
Okay.
And once they're ready to hit the teen class, then they start getting into the training with adults. But you just have to make sure that even within the age groups, like when me and Monique teach, I'll take the 4 and 5-year-olds, because I like the little babies, and they're just fun. And then she'll take the 5 and 6-year-olds or the 6 and 7-year-olds, and work with technique with them. So we split those classes up, when we teach together. So, and
how do you design a curriculum for like a 4 and a 5-year-old? Like, what does a 4 and a 5-year-old need to pick up?
Just play. Just play. Okay, so
with the jiu-jitsu theme, I guess.
Yeah, of course. You just look at so this is kind of what I picked up from teaching kids, even teaching English, is like when I taught English, I would do like little magic shows.
Really? So,
yeah, I learned about 10 magic tricks.
Dude, but let's get this in an open mat, man.
I do a couple magic tricks that, so every class starts with 5 minutes talk time. Okay. We sit in a circle, go over the rules. It's redundant, but we go over the rules.
Okay.
If I have a chance to do a dad joke, they'll love that. And it's not even about jiu-jitsu. It's like, hey guys, what was your best part of today? Well, today I did something, this and that, and it's like, okay,
I licked the floor.
Yeah. Yes. So, and then then we get to go over, we talk about the rules, and there's standard rules, but what does it mean? They're like, so somebody would say, well, no picking your nose because it's gross and it's not sanitary. It's like, that's arbitrary rule. That's rule number 77. Don't pick your nose. And then
that's cool.
It's funny because like weeks later, Professor, rule number 77 was broken.
Oh no!
And I was like, what rule is that? Picking your nose. And I was like, okay.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
And so we have tons of different rules. No poking a guy's eyes out.
Okay,
that's very important.
It's advisable. It's advisable. Something I could transfer into multiple classes.
Yeah, and I remember all the kids' names. Like we have a ton of kids, and there's a few that trip me up. There's a Braylon, a Braden, a Brandon, and a Brendan. So, but I cannot remember my adults. They kill me every night.
Yeah.
I'll call Kyle Keith and Spencer Kyle Keith, and they're like, Professor, it's me, Spencer. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, my brain is dead by that time because I had to remember 40 different names.
I see it. It's almost like you need like a decompression, going from 4 to 8, 8 to 12, and then like as the kids depart, and it's kind of like this calm comes over the gym, and it's like, dude, for you've been in the mix of it for two.
It's really 1 hour, 1 hour focus with the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. I need to focus. I need to make sure they're having fun and they're learning, and they're also getting some discipline and some instruction, and know when to be a little bit hard on them and then when to make them smile. Yeah. And it's just an hour of my day. Yeah. And then the big kids come in, and we're training. And then, of course, adults, easy to deal with, Yeah,
it's a different animal for sure.
Yeah. So for 4 hours a week, I put my kindergarten hat on, and
that's cool.
I make sure that they have a good time.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense.
Taking the back, for example. We don't just like, hey, guys, this is what we're doing. Taking the back, spin around, get your seatbelt, hooks in. So what I designed was like a game. How can I do a game? Okay, everybody, all the little kids get on someone's back, make your seatbelt, and then the big kids on the bottom, they're fighting each other. You guys, all you have to do is hang on. If you get tossed off, then your team is out, and they will fight. They'll do. That's like 5 or 6 minutes of activity right there.
Keeping the back, basically.
Keeping the back, yeah. They're learning how to stay on the back without actually having to drill.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Then there's other games.
Why wouldn't that be an adult game too? I mean, like, right. It kind of is,
Yeah.
Sometimes it looks like that's the game to play.
I guess, the adults would enjoy some of the games. I guess I got to incorporate more the games to the adults.
That's never been a part of my training, but I probably should be.
There's another game where we do, you do shoulder tag. Don't let them tag your shoulder. That helps them to defend their collar. Okay. And then the next game after that.
Can they run around while they're playing shoulder tag, or is it stationary?
Stationary. You can't run. You can't run.
Interesting.
So,
I'll have to come watch that.
And then there's knee tag. So now you're level changing and knee tagging, and then there's toe tag. So now you really got to level change and dive.
Yeah,
but
you got to sprawl.
But you got to be careful. If you dive off of that toe, the little other kid might jump over you and tag your toe. From the top. So toe tag is where you get a lot of headbutts. But
I guess you got to kind of pick your participants.
Then you see the games and you see what the flaws are. So I noticed a lot of headbutts. So I say, okay, now there's a tagger and there's a defender. So one person is just not getting tagged, the other person has tagged. Of course, every time you get tagged, you owe 5 push-ups.
Okay.
And
cool. So there's a consequence.
There is. So they learn
that's not fair.
No. So it's good. So we have a bunch of. I've probably got like 30 little different games that I've
That's really cool.
developed from wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and guys, I've probably seen some stuff online where I picked it up. So.
Yeah, it sounds like the physical mechanics of it are all like very complimentary, and I'll stay with them through their grappling career, however long that ends up being.
Yeah, they don't know they're doing level change and takedowns.
Yeah, 100%.
They're just trying to grab a toe. Yeah.
This is what they do before dinner.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. So
do parents come in with expectations? I mean, are there?
They, it's word of mouth. So
Yeah.
they've heard it's a good program, so they come in and they want to check it out. And they're like, "Is it okay?" I was like, "Yeah, this is for beginners, for people who are experienced." I'm like kind of like like for me, I match them up. I know who matches up with who. I don't let the big kids smash the little kids. So.
Yeah, keep them safe.
Yeah, keep them safe, and it takes a little bit of time out of the class because you have to look at people and say, okay, so and so and so and so.
Yeah.
Okay, or the big kids, it's easier because I can say, hey, you four, go over here. You four over here. You guys are in your own group, and this is the objective for the next 5 minutes. So.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I noticed that Spencer matches people up when he's doing the drilling. Do you match folks up on your when you're teaching the class as well?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I used to let them go and choose their own, but then I started noticing, Sean would be over there and nobody would be looking at Sean.
It's like the big guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's not, he's 200 pounds, but they just don't want it.
It's like, I'm good.
All right, guys, next round, let's go get your partner. And everyone's like looking at the floor. Sean's like sitting there going, anybody want to get smashed? So, but then I realized, some of my guys are a little older, some have injuries, and, we don't want to put this guy with a bad neck against Frank or Sean.
Yeah, so. Somebody that's going to unintentionally make
and I think they
work.
Appreciate that too. They know. Or one of them come, hey, man, I don't mind going with the tough guys, but thanks for not putting me up against Frank tonight.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's always amazing to me. Like this, I think, anyway, is probably the first place I've ever gotten paired up. In a lot of different schools that I've been to. A lot of times sparring is kind of like you just said, like everybody grab a partner and then you're in between rounds and like go get your next partner. And I mean, intentionally or not, some people do get left out. Like the Seans of the world. Maybe Sean's a great guy. I mean, there's no reason to single Sean out. But you might be the 285-pound guy. Who knows he's intimidating people and doesn't want to, go, hey, how about I smash you for a little while? They just or a female.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's amazing to me. Like Formiga does that. And it feels very customized. Like hey, are you pushing today? I'm like, yeah, push.
Yes.
Push.
Yeah.
Or, how's your shoulder? I'm like,
yeah.
And I'll get one hard round and I'll get it feels like a little bit more concessionary or something, or he'll, it's just, I don't know. I wasn't sure what I thought about it at first, but I actually really like that a lot better, to be honest with
you. It's nice.
Yeah. There's still open mats. Open mats, do what you need to do, roll with who you want, but,
the flip side of that is also the guys, this is the first time I put him up against the purple belts, and he's like, man, coach really wants me to, okay, he wants me to step up.
Yeah. The bar's been raised.
They feel like, okay, good.
No, that's true. I didn't think about that, but I felt that before as well. I'm like, oh man, okay, cool.
Yeah. He trusts me enough to go up against this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
right.
Yeah, so.
That's awesome. You've got, it's interesting because like I've been able to see sort of the evolution of Argyle Jiu-Jitsu. And so you've got guys that have, as you mentioned, came in like Spencer, like straight up organic, turning into really good grapplers and hopefully never quits,
Yeah.
And then you've got guys like Kyle who came in, have a lot of experience, are really good grapplers. And so you've got a good mix there. Yeah. How do you manage that? I mean, you've got folks who are just like, dude, if I get 2 days a week, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's my objective. Like I want to lose some belly fat.
Yeah.
What's it like running a class like that? Now that it's evolving to a really well distributed group of guys.
Yeah.
You've got competitors and you've got straight up recreation.
Yeah. It's, you look at, like you said, I have like 3 or 4 purple belts. And the first round, I'll put up the white belts against them that way, and that's to say, hey guys, you guys sit on your guard, and let these guys work. Be a good uke.
Yeah, that's a skill, man.
It's a skill.
I mean, it really is.
All the time. Yeah. So it's like, hey, let them work. Guys, and then the second or third round, you're gonna start going up. It's gonna be purple against purple or brown against purple, and we'll put the white belts. Try not to match up too many white belts, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, just managing the matchups so that everybody can maximize, skill development.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I can't let some. We have one female. She's Miriam. She's one of my first. She's also organically grown, and she's smaller. And she's got a little bit of a disability. So
I've met her. Yeah, we've rolled together.
Yeah,
she's no fear.
No, she has no fear. But at the same time, it's not going to help her develop if I give her a 200-pound white belt just to smash her. So, and then some of the guys I know are good with her, like let her work the pass guard, and just cannot let her get her spinning arm bar.
Is that her thing?
Yeah, spinning arm bar.
I'll have to keep that in mind.
She has really short legs, so she can arm bar you just by wrapping her legs around your arm.
Oh, is that right?
She doesn't need to have the neck.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's a good skill for
Interesting.
her. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. She tapped me out one time with she had my back. I was letting her work the choke. And then, you stuff the arm and you cover the arm and keep the arm tight. Uh-huh. She was able to arm bar me.
Really?
While choking. I was like, get the choke, but then I feel my arm just getting.
Whoops.
I was like, tap, tap.
Interesting.
Yeah, so she's.
A lesson in rolling with all body types.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember rolling with her. She, not everybody can do it, not everybody can keep a flow going, but I'm 200 pounds, man. I mean, I'm not like, then just my style, if I'm rolling with somebody that's a lot smaller than me, whether it's a male or a female, like I'm going to tend to play on the bottom and try to work things and move and develop my own skills but sometimes it takes two parties, and she was a really good roll. Like she'll continue to move and jump and stay active and try to pass the guard and give me a chance to recover. And of course, I mean it's a back and forth. So that's a good point. We talked a little bit about like Spencer's funny story about hiding from you and learning to compete and sort of registering on his own. But in the no kidding category, I mean, you do have guys now that are, like, this is their thing, man. They want to get after it. They're seeing their teammates. I mean, I've told the story on the podcast before that I hadn't competed since I was in my 30s, and now I'm hanging around all these guys at Formigas. I'm like, dude, I'm in. I want more. It becomes addicting. What do you tell those guys? I mean, do you compete? Do you not compete? I mean,
it's funny because when we were starting, I wasn't a big competitor. I don't want to push these guys to compete. There's a lot of pressure to do that. Yeah. Again, I don't want anyone to get hurt.
I know.
It's dangerous out there.
Yeah, can be.
If you don't, and I think it was our second year. In our second year, we had a guy blow out his ankle, like really bad. Dislocated it and broke his, the bone that's down there. I forget what what that bone's called, but
I don't know.
It was bad. And that was because.
Was it on a submission?
No, standing up.
Okay.
One of the other guys went for like an inside foot sweep. I can't remember what they call that in judo. And all the weight of these two guys, these guys are both 220 plus. All of it landed on one ankle.
Oh, really?
I was in the bathroom and I heard a huge pop.
Oh my gosh. Is this in the gym or is this
at the gym.
Yeah. Okay.
And I already, I didn't let my guy stand up a lot.
Yeah.
I just knew, from wrestling, it's dangerous, and I've seen, like I said, 4 other catastrophic injuries from stand-ups. Yeah. The guy, Professor Cho's first judo white belt, blew out his knee. We had another girl in there. She was an American. She came in and she was doing takedowns and something happened. She blew out her knee. Yeah. Like completely tore everything. And so I'd seen a lot of stuff, and I go, for wrestlers, it's okay. Even wrestlers blow out their knees.
For sure, man. My son spent half his season he rolled over his elbow on a lat drop. If you've got an over under, they've got an over under. And so I mean, it's tough. It's a long way down.
So I was, I was just not big into competing. For the kids, it's okay. They're
because of the stand-up element, or because
the stand-up element.
Because you're going to have to introduce
we have to do it at the gym.
Meaningfully more dangerous element. Yeah. When I say dangerous, I mean more injury prone.
Yeah. And when we started doing stand-up, that means you can only have 4 guys on the mat at one time because they need a big area. And again, you're older, you're not as coordinated. Yeah. Ankle, knee. Even then when you fall, you break your wrist. So. But, and after that happened, I was like, see, this is why we don't stand up. I mean, before I let them guys stand up, this guy was one of our blue belts, and he's training for, it was either Jiu Jitsu World League or something. And he was training for like 3 or 4 months, and then, blew out his ankle. He's still coming back from it.
Really?
He's still training, but he's being really cautious about his ankle. So that hit me, and I was just like, oh man, this is,
that Professor Cho. And
oh man, I called the emergency crew, came out, took him, he had surgery. It's been a year for him to come back, and he still loves it. So that's why I shy away, but started opening up again, doing takedowns, but I'm babying them. Like, we're not, for takedowns, we're drilling. We're not like, don't let them, we're not going takedowns.
Yeah.
And that's been about 2 months we've been doing that, single legs, double legs, duck unders. Not doing we did a couple hip tosses, but not too many. And now we're starting to go last night, we divide the mat into 4 sections, and winner stays in takedowns.
What was last night? Tuesday,
no-gi.
Okay. Note to self: don't make plans on Tuesday nights.
Well, so it was Tuesday no-gi. We started out, we worked some takedown stuff, and then it's like, okay, we work. They know how to do a single leg, and we worked on snap downs.
Okay.
I said, you guys are in this quadrant, and winner stays in. It's just takedowns.
That's cool.
So, and I'm in the middle watching everybody. I'm just looking like, Hey!
Keep him safe.
Don't do. Hey, okay, you got his back. Okay, let him go. He doesn't know how to fall from there. So and then, when we finish takedowns, it's like, okay, now we're doing 3-minute round sparring, but you start on your feet.
Yeah,
and get them tired, and
that's a major element of the tournament too. I mean, it's definitely going to start up. You only have 5 minutes.
Yeah,
that's not a lot of time.
So we put all of our eggs in the basket for Jiu Jitsu World League coming up April 29th. We have like 20 guys signed up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Adults?
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. We have like 40 kids and 20 guys. So this is our biggest.
Okay.
I'm only picking one tournament to go to every year. Like,
like a sponsored tournament type of thing?
Jiu Jitsu World League.
Okay.
We only have 2 people doing IBJJF, Spencer, and I think they would have one, so.
Yeah, I've competed with Spencer at BJJ before.
I like Jiu Jitsu World League.
He loves it.
Yeah, he loves it. He's Jiu Jitsu World League is a good venue. Never organized.
Duncanville, is that where it's at?
No, that's in Frisco.
Oh, it's in Frisco.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Naga, and what is it, AGF and New Breed.
Duncanville.
Yeah, those tournaments are tough to go to.
A little tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, just infrastructure's not there.
Yeah. Quality of refereeing sometimes.
Oh, really?
Don't want to badmouth them, but
But it's different. It's just not the vibe you want for your students.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
And then Jiu Jitsu World League is twice a year or 3 times a year, and we can focus every 2 or 3 months of training and then send them out there.
That's cool. That makes sense. I mean, it can be overwhelming otherwise. Yeah. I mean, just for example, we had Waco, Austin, Dallas, all in sequential months. I mean, so you're always, and then Pans, so you're always training for something. And I mean, it's fun, but it can also be really overwhelming, especially if you're a recreational practitioner and if like a single competition is a stretch for you.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit overwhelming. So I guess there's a big benefit to saying, look, this is where we're going all in.
Yeah.
So you could get your taste of it.
So that's why we had the in-house tournament. I was like, okay, let's do an in-house tournament first. And for those of you guys who feel comfortable, sign up for Jiu Jitsu World League. And we had like 20 guys sign up. It's like, holy mackerel.
Dude, just scoring a match changes things. Suddenly it's like, oh, wait, there's some skin. I mean,
But we had one of our purple belts lose like 12-2 because he was in a half guard and the guy got out of his half guard.
Sounds like my experiences.
Went back to half guard, got out of half guard. And he's like, wait, he's scoring every time he gets out of my half guard? And I was like, yeah, you lost 12-2 because, you held him in your half guard the whole day, but he just got out three different times. Yeah. So
interesting.
So now he knows.
It's a good experience.
Yeah.
I like my reentry back in was in Waco and I lost but I was so happy with it because I understood like the mindset that I needed going forward because like to me, the rounds that I had, dude, if it was at noon, like in our normal class that you and I would go to, like I'd be happy. I'd be like, cool, that was fun. That was good.
Yeah.
I went against a big, huge dude, and here I am after. All's good. But I mean, the same thing. Like, I just lost track of the points. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I lost track of the time. I was behind. I didn't leave enough to get out. Just stuff like that. It's good to get that experience and know that it's a different objective.
It is, yeah. But at the same time, I can go to double five, anytime during the week, and get 7 rounds with some of the top guys in DFW.
Totally.
Which I'll go to World Masters and get 2 or 3 rounds.
Exactly.
But yeah,
and travel there, and pay for it.
I think I just lost the competitive spirit after wrestling.
Well, you've got a little different story. I mean, you're wrestling, like, I'm going to guess probably 50 matches a year.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Every tournament was, 3 or 4 matches every tournament, all day long.
Yeah, it's all day long.
It's not like wrestling, like Jiu Jitsu. You go there, you're scheduled to go on at 10. You're going to be off by, your group will be done by 11:30.
True.
But wrestling, they have to go through the weight classes all the way up.
And you're part of a team. So
part of a team. So I remember I just spent countless hours sleeping in the bench, in the bleachers.
I'm going to guess you had 1,000 matches.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm just kind of doing the math, know?
Yeah. Every year for like 2, 4, and then 3 years after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pretty burnt out.
That's a pretty good sampling of competition. So, yeah, I mean...
I'll tell you where I really was done with wrestling is it was my first year in college. They had in Vegas, they have the Nationals. And this year was like 92, so it was the Olympic trials. And I went there, and it was like 60 guys in my bracket. And we were down like the last 12. And I was like, oh man, I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. I'm in my right weight class, which was 114 pounds. Because in college I was like 118 pounder, and I couldn't even make the weight. I was weighing in 112. So this guy in the 12th round, I forget his last name, but he's from New York, and he texts me. And back then I think 15-0 was the tech. Now it's 10-0, but
in college it's 10-0.
In freestyle wrestling.
Oh, in freestyle
wrestling.
Okay.
Freestyle wrestling, 10-0 now. Used to be 15-0.
Okay.
He texted me within like 3 minutes. And I was like, man, I couldn't do a thing. He put me, he actually got me leg lace and threw me across the mat 3 times too. So I was like, well, he was tough. He's tough. He's probably going to win the whole thing. I'll tell you right now. He gets teched the next round. And I was like, wait, he got teched?
Dang.
And then
levels.
Yes.
Levels.
And then my coach told me, the guy that teched you, he's an All-American, and he's been, for the last 6 years, this has been what he's wanted to do, was make the Olympic team. And you just finished one season of college wrestling and just came in here and just played. And now you know what it takes, if you want to dedicate the next 4 years for the next Olympic trials. And I was like, jeez. No, I'm probably going to Korea pretty soon.
I'm good. Yeah. So I'm going to go play basketball.
Yes, I'm just going to go and enjoy life. Yeah, and of course, when you're a wrestler, you don't drink, you don't party, you don't do any drugs. So by the time I got to Korea, and I just got to live my life as an adult.
Yeah,
like I go out and drink and hang out, not be disciplined, and so that was. I got to spend my college years in Korea, basically, meeting a bunch of people and just having fun.
That's cool, man. It's an interesting journey. It shows you what a grind it is. I mean, to be a wrestler, for starters, there's no question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've raised 2 of them, and so
competition is a little, for me, I'm just not that psyched to join a competition. I know my students want, hey, when are you going to do a tournament? I did Masters a couple of years ago. In Vegas. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I had one match. I was winning, and then I got disqualified.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. The guy, he had me in a choke, but it wasn't a real good choke. It was like that bulldog choke.
No.
And it's like the wrestling headlock.
Okay.
So I had I did this I don't know what it's called, loop choke, where I flip over the guy, and I had him on my back choking him. And then he grabbed my head, and so I was like, okay, I'll let go. And I grabbed his wrist, but my finger went in, and he stopped it. And I was like, what happened? And he's like, put your finger on his sleeve. I was like, oh no.
Oh geez, I didn't know that would be a DQ.
That's a DQ.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime the guy is going for a submission and you use, you grab his sleeve or his pants, it's a DQ.
Okay, cool. Well, that's
lesson learned.
Step lesson learned for me too, and everybody that's listening. And if nothing else, learn the rules.
Yeah. Right. Learn those little rules. So,
yeah. It's intricate.
Yeah.
So if just a message to your students, if they want to compete, what do? They come talk to you?
Yeah. Just let me know if they're ready to go. I'm kind of on the competition train. Like, you guys want to do the tournament, especially Jiu Jitsu World League. It's not high stakes, and you'll get 2 or 3 matches. And if they're ready, to do it, stand up wise. If I think they're okay, if they have injuries, I'll say, hey, get over your injuries first. You don't want to get injured. Yeah. So.
When I the interesting thing about injuries in tournaments is that's where, because I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but it was somebody who's not a jiu-jitsu person or just began, and they came and watched one of the recent tournaments. They're like, dude, I see a lot of ice packs and I see a lot of, and I'm like, it's true, but I've talked to some of those folks, and in most cases, it's people that came into a tournament with an injury.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, they got a heel hook and they blew out an ACL or something like that. It was like they came in nursing an ACL and they had a marginal change to it, or got caught in something that would otherwise be not even worried about. So you do kind of need to be 100%. What about guys in the gym? And I've talked about this at length because I've been affected by it at length. But what about guys that are injured? What are your kind of rules of engagement, or what would you say as a professor and as a coach? Yeah. How do they participate in jiu-jitsu still if they want to be a part of the gym, want to be a part of the action? How do you, if you're nursing a shoulder, nursing a knee, nursing a hip, whatever the case may be, what's your advice?
Take time off. Just rest it. I mean, we've all been there. You don't want to come in. I know I've been injured a bunch of times, and I would just go in. And I said, I'm just going to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I can drill. I can do a couple of drills. Next thing I know, I'm sparring.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So it's tough to just come in and sit on the bench and watch it.
It is tough. It takes discipline.
Yeah. And you can only do so much in drilling. You don't want to drive 20 minutes to your gym and then just do shrimps for like a half an hour and go home. And it's depressing too. You're like, oh man, I want to get out there and roll with these guys. So stay home, take time off, do some other, swim, ride a bike or something.
Okay. Use it as a chance to cross train a little bit, do something a little bit different.
Right. Yeah. Just take some time off. Let it, man. You don't want to, jiu-jitsu is a long journey. You don't need to keep having that reoccurring injuries. All my injuries that I've had, broken fingers, dislocated shoulder, lower back, neck problems, I just took time off and medicated sometimes. And when I felt, 90%, I'd start going in and training. It kind of sucks because you're a little bit rusty, but it's nice sometimes. Like you go back, you take 6 weeks off, and you're going back to basics. Yeah. And you're like, wow, okay. And then they're like, "We're man, you're good. What? I thought you took 6 weeks off." So yeah, I don't have any conditioning, but I still have the basics.
My grips work again. I can close my hand all the way. My elbow can be extended again. That's a good point. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's not going anywhere, so we're year round. So it's not like when seasonal softball. Yeah, or so. Just take some time off and get refocused. It's good for you mentally too. Sometimes if you go for like 6 months straight, you start getting, your mind games, anxieties, man, I can't get over this hump.
Yeah, it's so true. I was going to say the same thing, is that this, and this is what I would tell my kids when they were little, is that, inevitably, and it wouldn't be the injuries. For me, it's the injuries, but for them, it would be just boredom, wanting to change things up. And I'm like, there's no season, right? This isn't soccer or whatnot. It's not over in 6 weeks. So if you need to take time off, what we're not going to do is complain all the way on to the school on Tuesday, or kind of give it a half effort or something like that. If you need to take time off, take time off. Yeah. Back to the adult that might be injured. If they want to come, can they watch?
Oh yeah.
You allow it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if they want to come.
Some professors I found that they don't. In fact, they would discourage it or make fun of them or whatnot.
No.
So if they can come and they can control themselves, they're allowed to do it.
If they want to come and they want to, drill. I think we had 3
When I
guys
say control themselves, I mean like don't spar, actually don't drill. No, it is hard.
You can get a lot,
people can
and
do that.
even the instructions, you know.
Yeah. I personally have benefited for that. That's why I always hark on it. And I have had schools where it was like, if you're not training hard, then you're not training here, you know? And for me, it was the opposite. In fact, he would be like, Dave, you ain't training today. Like, I don't even know why like, I'm just going to watch, I promise. And, you know, or here's what I can do now. But I've always wanted to kind of clarify the rules of engagement because they are very different from school to school.
Yeah. We're pretty, I mean, I have I'm a little bit traditional because I trained the last time I trained under Professor Jeff was very traditional, but I really loved it because I'd been a lone wolf training everywhere.
Yeah, you were kind of a Ronin, man. I mean, you're throwing yourself
I finally got 1 year under somebody who is just solid jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. And then when I opened my gym, I started kind of doing it like the way he did it. We did like the warm-ups, the 15-minute warm-up, the rolls and the shrimps. And
me personally, if I find a class that doesn't do it, then I don't come until I'm warmed up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 45, man. I need freaking time, dude. My body needs to be acclimated to these movements or you won't see me again because I'll be, you know, I'll tweak my neck on something stupid. Yeah. You know, like somebody touching it. Doesn't take much now, man.
But after about, I think it was 6 months in, maybe a year, started not doing as many of the warm-ups. I started listening to good podcasts and listening to some of these other school owners who have changed things up. A big influence for me was this guy named Britt Mikkelsen out of Scandinavia somewhere.
Britt Mikkelsen?
Is it Britt?
I don't know.
I think it's Britt, and he's with the Globetrotters. And he puts all his seminars online.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them and probably know who he is by appearance, but just don't know his name.
He has a PhD in exercise physiology, so
he's credible. That's for sure.
He knows what the research is on exercise.
What's his advice?
He's like this, you know, jiu-jitsu is kind of like there's no research behind. You know the old saying, hey, get a good warm-up in, like 15-20 minutes of hard work, then you'll rely on technique. Yeah, it's just not true. You're just going to get tired. And then your training is going to be 50%. You know,
because you spent it all in the warm-up.
You're you know. So I've done some warm-ups where I was like, some Brazilian style warm-ups where I'm just gassed. Yeah, and then then you say, okay, now we're going to spar. But now you only can rely on technique because you're too tired. Well, actually you can't. You can't even do 3 rounds because you're tired. So he talks about that, and so I follow a lot what he says. Guys, all you need is, you just need a little bit of stretch. It's going to be a cold stretch. It's not great, and then one of you warm up doing like put a guy in your guard and have him lift you up like 10 times. That's like a squat, and plus it's a guard escape. So
very functional.
Functional, practical, and then he applies context. It's really interesting how he talks about it. Like, okay, guys, you're going to be in half guard. The top guy he has to escape half guard. The bottom guy can only get to close guard or sweep, but you cannot switch to like spider guard. You cannot switch to and then this is the lesson. He's like, okay, guys, 1 or 2 minutes, work, go. And then afterwards, sits down, okay, what happened? Tell me what happened. Then people start telling, well, every time I did this. Every time I did that, this. And he goes, he got the feedback right away. And he watched it, and he goes, yeah, so let's break down what happened and how to deal with it. Then he teaches the lesson.
Interesting.
So he said, now you have a context of what you're doing in half guard. You're not learning, hey, half guard, knee cut, back step. You're learning through the context of it and then the feedback. And then he says, okay, this is how you deal with these little situations. And then after he shows a little bit of a lesson, you go back and get back in the half guard, do it again, and see what the results are.
With the revised technique?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
So he's got a real different style of teaching. And it's based on sports, sports philosophy. And he compares it to like every other sport that you do. When you do like, there's only a few sports where you do a lot. Like you want to learn how to do a free throw, you got to probably shoot, 1,000 of them. Yeah. That's drilling, but you might be good at free throw. You go into a game, you don't know how to do anything but throw a free throw. Yeah, right. Right. Or even worse, when somebody passes you the ball, you don't know how to handle it dynamically. Right. Yeah. So he talks a lot about putting things in context, which is, I kind of do that a little bit with my gym too. I try not to do like the, 2 techniques a week or 2 techniques a day.
Yeah.
And then spar. So.
Yeah, that can become overwhelming.
Yeah, but the warm-ups are like that. The warm-ups are, hey, you're getting half guard, you guys 1 minute each.
Yeah.
Okay, side control, 1 minute each. Back take, 1 minute each. Just go into positions for 1 minute and work hard. And they get tired. And trust me, they're warmed up.
Oh, yeah.
And then after we did that.
A minute of trying to escape somebody's side control. I mean, dude, you're going to get warmed up. Yeah.
So that takes about 12 to 15 minutes. That's a good warm-up. And then you can stretch after that a little bit if you want to before we get into the lessons, the techniques.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned, and I guess kind of getting close to closing things out a little bit, I know some of your injuries. I mean, you've sacrificed your body over the years as an instructor, and then also you've been pretty hard on your body over the years as a grappler, so that comes with necks, backs, knees. I mean, all of that stuff. If you could go back and do it different, now you're using your body as part of your product, like we talked about.
Right.
So if you could go back and do anything differently, how would you change your fitness regimen? Would you add anything? Would you supplement things, or what advice would you have for somebody that's clearly, if they're listening to this, they're kind of on the path that you're on?
Yeah. Yeah. Stay within 20 pounds of your weight class.
Okay.
When you're training.
Okay.
Depends. It doesn't matter if they're, especially if you're white and blue belt.
Okay.
Even some purple belts, some, they don't want to give up a little bit of, they don't want to give in to a white belt. They don't want to lose to a white belt, right?
Yeah.
So, but as long as you're within 20 pounds, they're not going to smash you. You're going to learn. You're going to be able to try to get out from bottom sometimes. But like, I'm a black belt. I'm 140 pounds. And, if somebody that's 200 pounds blue belt gets to my side control, I'm going to be there for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be surviving until I can get my guard back. And
yeah.
I may never ever get my guard back because they're just putting that good pressure on. So I spent 5-6 minutes under this 200-pound guy. He never submitted me. Maybe he got close to knee on belly, but I didn't learn anything, and he didn't really learn much. He learned how to lay on somebody. So
yeah.
So
you tested your defense.
Yeah, I mean, I tested it, but at the same time, I didn't do anything with it. So So stay within 20 pounds of your weight class so that you can learn. It's I'm quoting John Danaher, but it's skill development.
Yeah,
we're not winning or losing. You're gonna have 6 rounds. You don't need to win every round. But if I did 6 rounds and I got tapped every round, but I was able to escape a knee on belly because I had learned it the right way and I used it, that's the win for me right there. So and you can't get those wins. It really depends too on the class sizes too. If you have 6 guys and 3 of them are 300, 200 pounds and 2 of them are 150, then teach your guys, your 200 pound guys, you need to teach them, hey guys, let the guys work their guard pass. You work your guard retention. If you sweep them and get on top of them, mount them, you go ahead and submit them, but then go back to your back. Just so that everyone can learn.
Yeah. I was rolling with a young white belt, and he's got to be getting close to his blue belt at this point. He's good, and 23 years old, a hustler. My size too, maybe even a little bit heavier. And he got me in an Ezekiel, and I fought like crazy, man, and got out. Because of my ego, and I paid the price for weeks.
Ezekiel's
my neck was sore. And I told him too. I'm like, dude, I can't believe I didn't tap. That was so stupid of me.
Yeah.
Like, just so you know, you had that, and I freaking battled out of it.
Yeah.
And he probably has cleaned up the technique enough now that it would have got me anyway. Like, I'd learned nothing other than how to take a beating and how to freaking apply icy hot. I mean, that mantra and that overused colloquialism of tap early, tap often, man. I mean,
it's hard to learn. You just have to do it. Just I've trained long enough. I have nothing to prove.
Yeah.
If it's a terrible lesson, it's an Ezekiel. It's a terrible Ezekiel, but it kind of bothers me. I'm tapping.
Yeah.
Just for me, I'll tap. I guess when you're a purple belt, you don't want to tap to a white belt.
Yeah.
But save yourself some trouble, man.
Yeah. Good advice, man. Yeah. Everybody gives it. You're another black belt that has come in here and given that advice and applies it, and we'll see how many people take it.
Yeah. I'll guarantee he won't get it again. The next time he won't.
100%.
Yeah.
He might get it again, but I'm going to be looking for it. I'm definitely not going to get that far behind.
Miriam armbarred me once with a spinning armbar, and it wasn't the perpendicular one. It was more like the 45 degree.
Okay.
And my shoulder popped.
Really?
And I didn't get a chance to tap, but I was like, tap to it. And it's like, God, I should not have let her get that far. But
Yeah.
But when she goes for that spinning armbar now,
There's
I'm
a
like,
vulnerability.
I cannot give it to you. Sorry.
Yeah,
I can't give
yeah.
it to you. But good, But yeah, so sometimes you get tapped by something, but it's also, okay, I know you can do an armbar, so I'm not going to let you do that again.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It sucks that trial and error has to work that way, but that sometimes is the only thing. And different body types can do different things, and so it's crazy.
Yeah, so...
Your journey has been, it's fascinating, man. I mean, like just hearing your story of wrestling in Alaska all the way down to D1 wrestling in California, and then spending, almost 2 decades over in Asia, doing different things, different professors, different folks, the journey from, pure play American style grappling to, slapping a white belt on. Looking back at it all now, would you have seen Argyle Jiu Jitsu, with a couple hundred students and a good lineage and a good current professor and all that other stuff? Was that part of the plan?
No, never. Yeah, it's such a long journey that you just keep your head down and keep training. Yeah, and you never know. It's a 10-year process. And we're in our adulthood, so you're changing jobs, you're getting married, you're moving around town, so. It's just part of your lifestyle at that point. If you get addicted to it. Yeah. Yeah. The first 2 years I wasn't addicted. I was just training every 3 months, take 3 months off. But yeah. And then at the end of the day, I was like, oh man, I think I can probably teach this and kind of semi-retire, You're
teaching kindergartners, man. In my book, dude, you can pretty much do anything.
Right. So.
You're a saint.
Yeah. So. Yeah, after getting into working on Amazon for a year, it's like, man, there's got to be something easier to do. Yeah. And I think at that point, more fulfilling. Yeah, I didn't want to teach or open a gym because I still wanted to train. And I was like, man, I have to give up training and just focus on teaching. I would lose a lot. But no, it's been different. It's actually been good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. That's awesome. How do we close things out, man? Final words of wisdom from Professor Paul.
I am terrible at this because I'm terrible with cliches and expressions because there's too many of them.
There are, especially jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, the black belt is a white belt who never gave up.
It's true, though. But you're living proof.
But I grew up in wrestling rooms where you see it all on the walls. Here, walk champions, and 90% mental, 10% physical. So I always... I try to shun away from giving these expressions and these things, and so I don't really have a good one, that I live by. There's no mantra that I live by. I just, just come and train. That's it. Yeah, that's all it is. It's just training.
Yeah, you just got to show back up. Well, the good news is you don't have to come up with a mantra because your students kind of are your mantra. Yeah, and I can attest. I've personally rolled with a lot of them, and I've rolled with them when they were beginners, and then I've watched I've got a unique perspective because I'll disappear for a few months and while I'm training at my gym, and then eventually make it over to an open mat at yours, and I'm like, damn, I wonder what they're going on and what's going on here at night, because this guy's leveled up, and so that is the attestation. And clearly, you're doing a good job with good things and whatnot. So
good group of guys out there. Yeah,
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, once again, thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far, you've heard a fascinating journey. And Paul, thanks so much for being a part of this and for spreading the good word and supporting the community. So with that, we are out.